teach me new things. And it's like, I don't want new things. I just want better things.
Well, I find the AI is great for actually trying to teach you how to use a lot of the new
Oh
systems.
my gosh.
People,
Yeah. Well,
it's
that's
up on that. So,
that was like the first thing that came up. Anyways, I should say, hello interwebs. It is I, Hewlett, David Hewlett, and the wonderful, talented genius that is Isaac Arthur.
hello, everyone out there.
I am so excited about this one. I've been like so excited since I think it was Agni who brought it up as an idea, and it's just such. I cannot think of a better person to talk to about this than you.
What is Oh,
What happened?
it's me. No, I had the YouTube live stream up in another window.
Oh, so you're like, why is there an echo? What's going on?
Well, the high amount of latency. So there we go. We got our official AV sacrifice, the glitch that must happen for
Of
things
course.
to
Oh,
go
I'm sure there'll be more. I'm sure there'll be more. You know, I'm sure I'll end up knocking over my coffee or something. It's usually what happens. So, and of course, I'm coming to you live from the glamorous closet because my fabulous wife is in pre-production for her new show called Swedish Sugar. I should promote that. And so production, to save some money, they're having production meetings at my house. So I get relegated to the closet. But doesn't matter where we do this, because the reality is, one of the I was saying to my wife this morning that one of the most wonderful things about going to do research for something like this, to talk about what new science and technology things have come up since we finished filming Stargate that could then be explored in the new show, or what we think would be a good thing to see happen. Is that what's the first source I get recommended is you. I'm watching videos of you talking basically about this stuff already, so it's all old news for you. But for me, I'm very excited.
Oh, it's a fun topic, and Stargate has always been. People ask, are you a Star Trek fan or a Star Wars fan? I never felt that dichotomy was required, but usually it's Stargate for me because it's such a more modern, realistic flavor to it all. I mean, not that there's not a lot of handwave science in it, which we can discuss, but
Yeah.
it's still, it feels a lot more human, more day to day.
Yeah, it's sort of today, isn't it? It's like what would happen if Star Trek happened today?
Yes,
Which I always quite liked about it. But as you say, I never understand the sort of are you Star Wars or Star Trek? I'm like, no, I'm a nerd. I'm a sci-fi nerd. I love. It's not like I can only read Asimov or I can only read, I mean, you gotta. I think the whole beauty of science fiction is that it sucks you into these new worlds, and you get to yours specifically. I love this idea of speculative science, where you're taking what we know now and projecting that forward and seeing where it goes. And I think that's something that would be, that I'm very much looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with the new Stargate show, which I wish I had more insight in. I am just a fan on this. I have not heard anything about it other than Martin letting me know that they were going to announce it. But I just really wanted to talk about it with someone in the know. So,
no, I don't know anything more about the show than you do.
But it's funny though. Like, I mean, again, and the whole point of this is like if people want to do deep dives into this stuff, they have to obviously just go watch your stuff because you've got amazing things. But one of the things that I think we can't ignore right off the bat is that AI didn't exist in the consumer world the way it does now when Stargate was on the air. I mean,
a lot of things were similar in some ways because like we are still kind of going through a lot of the Isaac Asimov style basic things of robotics and AI. A lot of it's still applicable, and for a lot of us, like I always tell people, is like, well, should we be afraid of AI? I was like, well, yeah, you should absolutely be afraid of AI. But a lot of the stuff that people are worried about is stuff that we already were discussing 40, 50, 60 years ago. So the concerns are there, but there's been a lot more. How would we actually fix this? And I think that that's one of those ones you can see a lot more of in. We didn't do a lot of AI in Stargate. We do the replicators. We have a couple other one shots here and there on it, but there's a chance to say, well, the gate system, that's a computer. It's a software system. Yeah. It's going to be pretty old and smart by now. What if that had an AI in it, or something that infiltrated through a gateway? That's one of those fun little plot elements you could sneak in there that wouldn't be the replicators, which I feel like a little bit mined out. But,
that's interesting, though. You're right, because I mean, part of the big things about AI, one of the things I think people forget in all the chat and all this kind of stuff is the chat's only one component of it. I mean, the reality is AI will allow us to automate things that we wouldn't have been able to do before. And I don't want to put the Chevron guy out of work, but the reality is a lot of this stuff could be handled by some kind of an AI interface, couldn't it?
Yeah, I think there is one of those examples, and this is one of those examples of how sci-fi writer was all biased to get things wrong. In the early days, there's computers are these things are going to replace us. They're going to replace the factory workers.
Yeah.
Well, the very first job they replaced was the computer. That was a job,
Yeah.
And then we see that kind of shifting in now. For a lot of sci-fi writers, the last retreat, the final bastion of what would be human, would be creative writing or creative activities. And so that might possibly be an author's bias, since that's obviously a talent they have. A lot of that is very important to them personally. So don't get too bad on the idea that a computer can't be creative, or that that's the last thing they could do. But I think for a lot of folks, it is easy to forget that the AI has existed for over 20 years now. I remember back in grad school, we were messing around with it already. Well, that was 2001 for me.
But it was sort of laughable almost in its. It
was, and it wasn't chat. It couldn't talk to people. But a lot of the stuff that we do right now, I think we tend to assume language is a very complex thing, but it's not native to us in the first place. We added it on to a brain that was not designed for it.
Yeah.
And we only speak like 1 byte per second, so we're very slow about it. So we tend to assume it's very complicated, and yet we see with the chatbots, they're not. The chatbots are, I don't want to say they're a toy because they're incredibly useful. They're kind of like the smartphone, but the smartphone is not a supercomputer. The really cool AI is not doing chat, which is basically, you get around to it's a Google search engine that's got a really good ability to take what you said and find what you want and spew
and make it so sycophantic that you just want to smack it. Yeah,
mine's not. I have mine programmed very, very heavily to not do that, because I'll have a look through scripts after I'm done writing them to see if I've repeated myself or screwed something up, or find my typos, or just how is the flow on this. And it's very good about saying that's awful, take that out, which is nice.
It's funny because I trained Perplexity that way, so I was using Perplexity AI. I've now sort of started using Gemini more, and I haven't knocked that sycophantic prompt out of it yet, because
I haven't tried on Gemini yet, because my preferred default has been ChatGPT for some years now. I haven't really used it that much until maybe the last 6 months. It's been more handy. But in Gemini, I want to try because I can plug it into like Google Docs and things like that. Which
that's why I like it. Yeah.
Spreadsheets. And we just tried to shift doing this all big 26 thing for my wife and I was we're going to do our budget on a shared Google document instead of scratching out on a piece of paper. And
now that's an exciting New Year's resolution, isn't it, Isaac?
I remember not having a resolution. So like this year's Let's Get Fit thing, we started back after Thanksgiving when you most need it.
Right.
But I think that was the big one, is try to get a little bit more organized with the paperwork, because I've only been married for like 5, it's going on 6 years now. And it takes adjustment to kind of integrate how you do things. And I would say overall that the AI is very handy inside things like Google Sheets. You don't know the formulas, and I already know them for Excel. For Microsoft, I don't know as well for Google Sheets, so it was nice to have that option there. I've noticed I don't like Gemini as much.
I didn't at first. I've liked it now. I like it. I've been using the Nano Banana stuff, which is kind of great for just for doing the background of our little event thing. It was incredibly. Incredibly responsive to the prompts. So I could say, it started off with the Stargate, and I was like, that's not a Stargate, make it more like this. And then they would make it more like this. And then it wanted to add all sorts of smoke and stuff. And I was like, remove the smoke. And it was very, very good at sort of narrowing down what I wanted.
Sure.
But I mean, from a Stargate standpoint, though, I think the thing you've hit on there, which I'd never even thought of, which I think is just brilliant, is the idea of the gate network itself being integrated with AI and the issues that could come to play with that.
Oh yeah, and it's one of those ones you can bring forward more easily, because it's not just a raw computational power thing. We get examples of, depending on who's writing that month, sometimes the gate is a visceral wormhole, sometimes it's a Kip Thorne wormhole, which is the big massive kind, and sometimes it's a teleporter that takes you apart information-wise and rebuilds you from new atoms on the other end.
Right.
And so the information gets stored on the event horizon. I think I'm saying it at the one time, and which is technically viable. And so that is rebuilding you. That's going to involve a lot of compression. Right. And let's go.
Yeah.
Like, well,
what could go wrong?
On the back, of course, it's finger, or why don't we close you down now, put someone's arm in the way? That's exactly the sort of thing you'd assume they would use AI for.
Right.
Better than ours, although they obviously in this show also to have a I say mixed fortunes when it comes to AI. So,
Right. But I mean, what's interesting there though? So we're going to look at a 4K Stargate, so we'll get like a better resolution.
well, the downside of that though is because you switch up to HD and 4K is they're going to need more time on all the effects, and I know certainly a lot of folks prefer on the Actian to the new 10-episode Netflix style season, but I like me my 26-hour beast season.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. It's
And-
because I think again I understand the economics of it. I understand that also attention spans and cost, etc. But there was something about those 20 plus episodes where you got to meander through the characters as well.
Yeah.
So by the end of that, you were so connected with those people. Although, I mean, someone just mentioned Pluribus. I mean, that's, I think, doing a great job of creating and connecting to characters as well.
Because you always end up with the bottle episodes in those,
which I loved. I was always the winner on bottle episodes every time.
Bottle episodes duet was one of my favorites. I don't know if that was technically a bottle episode or not, but was it Dr. McKay and Mrs. Miller or that one? Oh, that was another one. I don't know if that was a bottle episode or not, effects wise, but you get these ones where it wouldn't have happened in a tight 10-episode season, and you get that character development that really, in the special effects are awesome. You bond with the characters in the storyline, and you get such a deeper chance to explore that. And then you got 2 seasons. Hey, season 2, we'll see you in 2 years.
Well, that's the other thing that drives me crazy is the amount of time between stuff. I've literally forgotten about shows that I loved by the time they come back. I mean, you mentioned Foundation in one of your videos, which I really enjoyed. I mean, I had problems with it, but only because it's based on such an iconic series.
It would be a much better show, honestly, if they just let the Foundation out.
In a way, yeah, it's true.
Because it was so much easier to get invested in the decidedly inhuman Cleons as opposed to or Harry Soden. Than it was to get involved with a lot of the actual characters they're bringing back. A lot of times because we actually see them more in the books. And to be fair, Asimov was never big on characterization. That's not.
No, it was all conceptual stuff, wasn't it?
So it doesn't matter to me as much as they mess around with the characters, but the show has changed a lot. I did actually like season 3, though. I was not expecting to.
Because it was waning. For me, it was waning season 2, and then I totally forgot about it by the time I came back for season 3.
Maybe that helps forget the things we have said about, though, too. But the same thing with Rings of Power. I'm a Tolkien nerd and an Asimov nerd. I'm named after Asimov, for God's sakes. But
yeah, really, you don't have a choice, really, do you?
No.
Yeah.
And I would say there, it's just kind of nice to see how they're developing. But you don't have to stick purely to the script. It's just don't destroy the IP. That's why I was glad to see so many people with the new Stargate show were coming on from the old days. It wasn't just a whole reset creatively. So that does not necessarily mean they'll keep it the way it was. But
I mean, and that's it. I guess my frustration and my sort of jaded industry take on this stuff is always like, I hate it when they sort of slap the IP on it and then do whatever the hell they want with it. That said, Battlestar was a fantastic reimagining.
Oh yeah, no, that was, and I know a lot of folks had issues with that one too, and that was early in the reboot days. And we had just gotten the Lord of the Rings out there. Is that like, yes, you can actually stick to the plot by and large, and it's good. They only made a few changes there, which made sense when you listen to Jackson talk about it. But I liked Battlestar Galactica reimagined season 1 and 2. After that, it started feeling like it was getting the J.J. Abrams, we have a secret plot. I don't know what that is, but
it's funny. We got in late to it because I started and I was like, Starbucks a woman. This is silly. Didn't give it the chance at first. And then we watched a recap, and also they were definitely competitors for Stargate at the time.
Oh yeah, and the kind of influence on Universe was very big.
Was huge, absolutely huge, and understandable too. I mean, they were winning Peabodys. They were, very different shows, very different shows.
And I liked Stargate Universe. I did actually like that grim atmosphere, but at the same time, to me, Stargate is not a grim, dark TV show.
Yeah,
it's much more hopeful, upbeat, and current. And so I didn't mind that venture with the SGU, but it's different when it's a spin-off show than it is when it's the one back, that's your core one. And I like it though.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely beautiful. I love the concepts. I love the writing. I love the acting. I mean, I thought it was an absolutely beautiful show. But the worst thing that happened to it was that it was called Stargate. And I think, had it been on as another Stargate world with the other one, then I think people would maybe have been a little bit more receptive to it. But
maybe
it was doing such different things.
It's nice to have that initial, because a lot of things, having the IP on there does attract people if they're going to, bomb on Reddit how much they hate the new version, and I can be amongst that crowd at times too. But I try to give things some room on that. But the biggest one is it an IP they're trying to adapt for audiences, or is an IP that's slapping on top somebody else's new show idea that they wanted? They just no one's going to watch this otherwise, and that's kind of like the Paul Verhoeven Starship Troopers one, where this has nothing to do with the book at all, and where they do draw it, it's just to make it worse. It's like, well, if it was an homage, maybe, but it's not. It's clearly anti-Heinlein, and so that makes it a worse story. But it's still a good movie. That's the funny thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's again, like you read Blade Runner, the book, compared to Blade Runner the movie, they're completely different worlds. Yeah. Again, both stand alone very well.
It's easy for things to mutate. I don't know if you've ever read, or actually took that, listened to an audiobook, the early from the Stargate movie era. They did some books on it afterwards. Kind of did with Blade Runner. There's a couple of books that follow up. Blade Runner.
I didn't know.
And it's he's still a Marine in that one, as opposed to Air Force, Colonel O'Neill. And they are set off on. They actually take place on that planet, and so one of the ones they visited. So it's very different. You can still see how it started from that same colonel, but it varies so much. And I think that the show went the right direction on that one, to be honest.
Yeah, I remember Splinter in the Mind's Eye. That was that Star Wars one that came out. It was just beautiful, and yet it did definitely break from the canon in many ways. I remember the one that I was outraged about was how they used the lightsabers. Suddenly they could do different things with the lightsabers, and I was like, "What? That's wrong!" And
and Alan D. Foster's a great writer. And again, it's your first. Yeah. I can't remember if that was before Empire Strikes Back, or it was before. So you had Star Wars: New Hope, that book, and then everything that follows afterwards. And the canon was really loose in everyone's head at that point. It was still like a popcorn flick that Lucas was doing.
Yeah, and it was fantasy. It was almost not science fiction. It was mainly just fantasy.
It definitely had that flavor. It was Flash Gordon, and
it was totally Flash Gordon.
It's so different. Then you get kind of this reboot of where in the 80s they're just writing novels that connect a little bit to that. Here was this one follow-up, but then you get the Thrawn series by Timothy Zahn, and that kind of sets the stage for that. And I think it helped to push for the actual movies coming out, because they are off that a lot. And you see so much more stuff coming out, so much more material coming out after that. And then it gets a reboot again when the prequel trilogy comes out. They smooth that over. The Clone Wars series is very nice as a cartoon. And then
that's one of my favorites of all the stuff, because I'm not a huge new Star Wars guy, because it's like Doctor Who for me. It was a whole different feeling. I think it's impossible to go back and see your show as a 10-year-old.
Watching it a lot of times, it's not the same thing as it used to be.
And you're not 10. You're not 10. You're not buying half the stuff. I mean,
I liked Andor. It was a very good show, but otherwise I haven't gotten too into stuff. But you always think when I see you Forever Night. I tried rewatching that TV show.
Oh yeah.
A couple years back, and I just could not get. But this thing was awesome when I was in my teens and early 20s still. And yet when I rewatched it, same for Highlander, which is kind of that same zone. It's so much more hokey. It's like,
my God, it's just
1990s.
Here's the thing though. We're also more savvy. Like we're as viewers, I don't mean just because of our age, but I think in general there is so much access to sort of behind the scenes stuff. I did an email of Awesomeness last night, and I went to talk about this Black Mirror episode with that sort of roach, that killer roach, the metalhead episode. Did you ever see that?
I've only seen one episode of Black Mirror. It was the very first one. I couldn't bring myself to watch anymore, I normally love sci-fi anthologies.
Weirdly, the first one is honestly the most challenging.
Yeah.
The rest of them are depressing as all hell, but that one was like a in your face.
That too, yeah.
Yeah. But there's an episode that was so prescient. I mean, I guess it's sort of obvious in a way, but it was just basically this little roach-like robo dog that was hunting down someone who'd broken the law. For whatever reason, was just hunting him down. And it was relentless, and it was kind of a terrifying vision of the future. It was all black and white. It was all very sort of like really fun. And I went to put a clip of the movie up, and found this beautiful breakdown of the visual effects instead. And like that stuff was never available. You used to have to buy like Fangoria magazine to see all the effects or Cinefex or, you know.
You get and for me, like one of my favorite online shows is one called SF Debris, where he basically just goes through Star Trek, but a bunch of other sci-fi too. And it's mostly critical because people tend to send in the ones that are bad. But
Right,
he loves the show. I love the show. So it actually adds an extra flavor. And you go back afterwards and you watch it, you still love the show. It actually made me like Star Trek Voyager just because he's so harsh on it at times. And I had to go back and watch it again because I'd always been, well, Voyager's not so good. But it is that extra layers of appreciation that you can get now that you really couldn't in a lot of other cases.
Well, it was also, I mean, talk about a shift in viewing. I mean, we're entering Stargate the reboot in the era of streaming networks in a way that we didn't before. In the same way that like we used to watch when I watched Doctor Who or when I watched Star Wars or whatever, you were not going to sit down and watch that a lot of times. You couldn't. I mean, VHS had only just started coming out, so you began to be able to watch movies when you felt like it. But even then, it was limited to what you could get. And I mean, now it's
Doctor Who,
well, Doctor Who. It's funny. I have old Doctor Who episodes that I'll sit down and watch every so often, just because I miss my Tom Baker Doctor Who days.
Tom Baker and the early ones are for me.
Pertwee. I love Pertwee as well.
He's good. Peter Davidson also was one.
Oh yeah.
No, but not Adric. I hate to beat up on Adric, but that was a horrible character.
Oh my God, yeah. There was some very odd companion choices.
And it definitely mutates me to as a Colin Baker and Sylvester.
McCoy. Yeah, Sylvester McCoy. Yeah.
And it's a very different show at that point. And then you can see the effects there, but even then, and it shifts there, but it's still classic Who, and nothing against the Eccleston or the ones who came later, but it went grimdark for the first Doctor Who seasons. It took them a while to dig out of that because that was very popular in the early 2000s. We always said it would give us the flavor. And
nihilistic kind of approach to stuff. Yeah.
Very much, and it certainly has some of my favorite book series like Black Company, right, or I guess Game of Thrones. But those are very grim, dark series. But at the same time, it is nice to have something that's a little bit more upbeat. And I think they did bring that back a little bit with the Matt Smith era, but then they kind of went back the other way. And I got a little bit into the Peter Capaldi era where I was like, I'm done with this. He's a good actor, by the way, too. It wasn't.
Oh yeah, no, there was some great. I mean, there's some brilliant performances. I think. I mean, I was a Matt Smith fan. I liked Matt Smith because to me it felt like a younger Tom Baker. He had a Tom Baker feel to him, and the show was a little less campy. I found it began to get a bit campy there for me. That I just
it was, and the campy episodes can have their virtues too.
Absolutely, I just don't want it all the time.
Yeah, right. You need a certain core seriousness, and you can go the other way too. To have a really good comedy, you need to have some serious moments. To have a really serious show, you need some good comedy in there too. And it's knowing when to do it as opposed to flipping back and forth.
I mean, David Tennant was brilliant too. I thought he was absolutely wonderful.
For a lot of people, he's the Tom Baker for the new era.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I liked his work, but it wasn't, Tom Baker. And what I liked about Tom Baker most of all was that when he played a character as Alien, he really did. He was, based on what they had available, obviously, it's always that limit, but he would smile at weird times. He was always that minor.
He was Tom Baker. He wasn't just an alien. He was Tom Baker. He was just weird.
And he just that way to remind you every so often that this guy is not human.
He's not from here. Yeah. Yeah, it was wonderful. And he had that, and he seemed as surprised at stuff as we did in many cases. Yeah. But again, I do think that is a lens that we had when we were younger. I mean, I think if I was watching Doctor Who now, I would be absolutely. David Tennant would be my Tom Baker.
And they seem to survive without the special effects. Although I like seeing more practical effects anyway. But even when you didn't have good practical effects, Blake 7 from that same year as Tom Baker, that show literally was duct tape and tinfoil. And it's not to say the writing was always that great either, or even the acting all the time, but they did a very good job with that show for what they had. And it is kind of the other grimdark TV show from that era. But it is also nice to see them with good effects too. But the biggest hope is, will there be more practical effects in the new Stargate? And that's always how the TV show. So
well, that brings another technology to light as well. Is that 3D printing had not really? I mean, I'm sure they had it a little bit for Universe, but certainly for Atlantis, there was no 3D printing. Everything was, they were all injection molded and had to be hand painted and all these. That is, I go to conventions and see better props than the props we used on the show.
Yeah.
And that will allow for, if they've got the time, for a lot of really great practical effects.
Oh yeah, and bigger models, bigger, just better effects in general. You see that with like Minister in the Jackson films for Lord of the Rings. They just have a gigantic model, and it just has that better look to it. But I was actually, that's another one of those topics that would be a good one to explore on the new show, is because we didn't have it then, so it wasn't written in a script. We have the classic Star Trek replicator there, which is, well, it's being assembled at the atomic level. That's not really how you would ever do these things. You had the power budget to do it just because it's not efficient. But what does that look like? Would you have, are you building your base on the other side where you do your alpha sites, for instance? Is that being built more by 3D, by 3D printing or additive manufacturing? Could you use a Stargate for additive manufacturing? Could you just open one up? Because, one of the theories you would do with a Stargate is, well, I got this one plant that's desert and this other plant that is, ocean. One's got all the seas are a mile above the nearest rock, and the other one's got no water. So let's just open a gate and dump water through.
Yeah,
which would take a lot longer than people tend to realize too. Right. It's not that good for throughput. We're talking thousands of years for all those things on, pretty much all the time. But
as a Genesis engine, like as a way of
could you
putting
print a base with a Stargate?
Yeah.
And what would that look like? It's like, well, we're going to build us a landscape with terraforming with a Stargate. On the backside of it is, magma or whatever you're using, basically your printing board, and you just go print the landscape using a moving Stargate over top of the surface. And that means, that's obviously, I don't know how much storyline you do with something like that, but that's those little options for what these new technologies really look like. Could you do a small, Stargate? Could we see big ones? We don't really see smaller ones a lot. And it's a lot of things.
It reminds me of like Minecraft, right? Like, the way that people would automate systems in Minecraft. It's almost the same kind of thing in a way.
I think that's exactly the kind of, and again, I hate to do too many modern references in a show, but if a Stargate's got to be excused to because it's set currently, or at least I assume it's be set currently. So, that's one way it makes perfect sense to be doing modern references to technology. And so you can get away with a lot more there just because it is now. And there's rooms to kind of look at that. And we've had the gate presumably now, assuming it's picking up from where the other show left off, which I have no idea.
They're saying that I'm not sure if they're picking up where they left off, but they're certainly setting it in the same universe apparently. So
that would be nice. And they don't have to do it at the exact same point. When did Atlantis actually wrap up? Was it 2007, 8?
I was trying to work this out. I think we finished filming in 2008. I think it would have been. Because we would air generally a year later or close to a year later. Yeah. And but someone will correct me because I'm sure they didn't know it better than I do at this point.
It's hard to remember, like, on episodes I write, and I will put them out in opposite orders of when they actually got produced. And months after I actually wrote the thing, too, and said, that episode for that one, because I made references to think that hasn't come out yet. But
it's like you can see to the future.
And it changes too, and that's something people miss. It's hard to keep track of the canon when you're involved in something because the canon changes live while you're working on it. Not just this new writer's got it away, but it shifted 5 times in that script, and so it's always still there in the head. But we last saw I'm not sure when SGU wrapped up, but we had Atlantis City in the bay off of, was it San Francisco or
Yeah, it was a wildly unsatisfying ending, I'd have to say.
That was a good episode, though. As last episodes go for shows, it was a better one than most. Like Battlestar Galactica's last episode was horrible.
There was. But in a way, maybe it's a problem to know you're going to end. Yeah. Maybe that's part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but cliffhanger was that way. They used to do every one of Blake 7 as a cliffhanger because they know which one of the actual crew were going to be coming back, so they both killed off.
That's right. Well, there's that classic All in the Family thing about asking for a raise, and so he gets the next script that says that Archie Bunker dies of a heart attack in the first episode, in the first scene. He's like, it's okay, I don't need a raise, it's fine.
See, remember that time? It's a dream sequence.
Yes, it's all a dream.
You can always come back. God be an agent for CSO2 and then come on back.
The thing that really got me researching this was just the extraordinary amount of innovations and discoveries we've made since then.
Yeah.
And like I was sort of hesitant to even bring it up in my email of awesomeness last night was Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of come and not gone, but it's certainly
It's still
come
there.
and gone-ish. And that was gonna change the financial markets and ruin countries, and I mean, it still has time, but
I did an episode on that when it was still very brand new and people were screaming how it was either be the next big thing or is going to die completely. I said, well, this is probably something you want to invest in very minimalistically, but it's going to stick around. It's going to, unless it gets banned completely, it's going to just kind of always stick around as niche because it's great for off the chart stuff or people who are very prepper or paranoid or just black market.
The security and underlying blockchain stuff is brilliant, and I think it will be used. If it's not already being used, it's probably just not being called that anymore.
Yeah,
but
it's just not crypto in that case. It's just and the idea there being this is, I guess it's still a fiat currency, but or you could it's commodity currency. It's different, but it's you got this currency that basically replaces cash as that thing that we didn't need it before because you could just go up and hand people cash and buy stuff. Now things are so inflated that with the maximum you can pull in the bank is not going to let you buy much on the black market. Right. So that's that workaround for people who want that for whatever reasons, be they malicious or mundane, do not want to be on record for what they just bought. And so that means it's always be stuck there a bit, and I don't see that going away. Trying to figure out what percentage of the economy that is. And it will flip over time because you'll have periods where people a little bit kind of like with gold or silver where people don't get that
which has just exploded right now. Gold and silver is apparently insane.
I remember I did that when I was deployed to Iraq too, because a bunch of us we had nothing to spend our money on at that time. We couldn't invest it, and there was like, let's buy into gold. And I was like, not so much. And I would say one of our friends
like physical gold. You were buying physical gold.
Yeah, well, online, but yes, and it was like that's the thing to buy. I was like, and I believe it. But you have to time that, and that means you have to pay attention. And I don't trust myself to pay attention to things like that.
And I'm not sure timing. I think they've proven that timing the market doesn't work.
Especially in the computed age. So the AI will do a very good job of that, but it'll do a very good job of that at the millisecond scale. So unless you want to live your life around dropping what you're doing.
That's the day trading, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
you just sit there,
doesn't work out for most people, and
how's that work out for you? Not so good. Yeah,
I would argue it might be better than, and this becomes a big one, online sports gambling. So, and there's another one, and Doctor Who did a lot of in recent years modern tech type episodes that were often kind of fell flat in my opinion. But you get one like what is the would you have people gambling on the outcomes of missions from Stargate or things like that? And then I think a very real thing is back at the mission control, do they actually gamble on the outcome of the next dial-up? This one's going to be a black hole.
And now, I mean, something that I didn't get into, but the poly markets now, right? This whole idea of these prediction markets, which are now being talked about on the news. Like they'll literally talk about events in Venezuela or whatever, and then say like, oh, the poly markets think that it's more likely that so-and-so will take over than, and for those of you who don't know, poly markets, this is new to me, by the way, like literally very recently. It's basically gambling. You're just gambling on events in the world, all of which can be frankly manipulated, especially.
And just to be slightly informed, this was a big thing. All the people using the poly markets to try to call the elections, and so my other hat in life is I run the elections for my area of Ohio.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Kind of busy, and I'm not as good at predicting as our director at the local places. He's like crazy accurate on things like levies, but I can usually know things been like 5% what's going to be decent ways out. So you start to know what the flow of people voting for it is. You get surprises though when I was to run those down. We had a fire and EMS levy that failed. Those usually passed big, and I spent a couple of years trying to figure out why that was on and off until I got around to asking one of the township trustees. He's like, "Oh yeah, it's because they bought a 90-foot ladder for a fire truck." I said, why would you need a 90-foot? He's like, we have one silo that's that tall. It's a rural farming community.
Really?
Yeah. So they bought like a $500,000 fire truck they didn't need, and thus that's why that levy ended up going down the next time they were asking for funds.
Oh, wow.
People were kind of angry about that, and that's one of those examples where you can look at the predictive markets and things, but always remember the statistics is a broad representation of how things are. There's always a cause and effect for why these things happen. You go out driving and get in a car accident. There was an actual thing that caused that car accident that could or could not have happened. It's just more likely in certain circumstances, but that's just an extrapolation of those generalized circumstances. So there's always these individualized things, and it's not, it's a little bit too quantized in a kind of a foundation psychohistory sense. You really can't accurately predict these things.
But but we're trying. I mean, because that's again another technology that's come up since then. Of course, is quantum computing, and the whole idea behind that is to be able to can you use a quantum model to create quantum models more. Can we create these virtual environments or virtual markets or whatever where we can use them to predict things.
And that was another fun one to do. People always worry with quantum computing. I mean, with poly markets and the elections, their track record is horrible. If you ask people, it's very good. If you look at the data, it's really quite bad.
Right.
It's not. I mean, it gets them right 52% of the time. You should be able to get 60% of them just by the fact they're not within 5 points. It's not that
right. 52% of the time is kind of like flipping a coin at this point. Yeah.
And I used to joke if I was going to get a business card, I'd say professional seer. I'm like 51% of the time. But the problem is that number is actually really high to be happening with the future.
Right.
So
Right.
we go with 10%. But, when we look at, I just lost my train of thought. It was, quantum computing.
Yeah.
Everyone was terrified we were going to lose the ability to do cryptography, that you'd be able to hack everything.
Yeah.
And we said to folks, well, just so you know, the exact same technology that lets you do this also lets you encrypt better, too.
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
not.
The post-quantum encryption stuff. Is that the...
And so you just had there were certain methods of encryption that was simply immune to it in the first place. It couldn't be hacked that way. And because it was made for better articles, better clickbait, better hype, that was what was going on there. And the quantum computing has remained a very difficult one to do. But if we ever get it working, it does potentially allow you to, theoretically at least, do very limited teleportation. So,
it's extraordinary the technologies that I went to this. We've got one here called Xanadu AI, and yes, because of the movie, but because of the music in the movie, weirdly enough. And they're using photonics and to create these modular quantum computers, and it's extraordinary. Like the stuff they're doing is absolutely extraordinary. There's something really weird about seeing a person in a lab literally putting, light fibers, what are they called? Fiber optics together and building these little quantum computers. Like that it's done by hand seemed extraordinary to me.
Eventually to do it with a robot, but that's not the only answer.
Well, and again, robotics, another thing that I think surely we're going to see more robotics in a new Stargate spinoff, right?
I think so. And it was one of those examples, like when you start trying to, this happens in science fiction, you try to start hacking the system a bit. Brandon Sanderson was always great at this in his writing for it, though he just fancy, but, he's got this ability to look at stuff and say, well, now we've got this cool magic thing that we've introduced. How far can we abuse this?
Yes,
and
yeah.
Stargates are great for that. Peter Hamilton did some stuff. They use a very similar style of wormhole Stargate in his Commonwealth.
I haven't got into Peter Hamilton, but everyone says it's worth it.
He's good for the Commonwealth ones. I like those ones. They're very human too, but it also got that slightly kind of modern, but not quite modern flavor that I really like about Stargate. But one of the things they do there is they have a 38-minute window on the Stargate, so he can just run trains to them, and they also run power cables to them. And so I, trying, because of course I'm that kind of geek, to calculate how many people could you get through a train like that, and if it wasn't sitting in the middle of a mountain bunker, could you actually like ramp up? Would it be realistic to have a bullet train getting ready to hit that thing just
right at exactly the right time?
What's your abort scenario if that turns out to be a bad idea?
Oof, yeah.
Well, you could have a switch track, or you could have you just have to hit it early enough that it could do that. And that could be problematic. Obviously, if there's a big concrete wall behind, all the more so. But I think it was maybe season 2 of the original series. They had they were attacking one of the Guild strongholds, and they have a tracked vehicle that's basically looks like a Segway with tracks on it with a machine gun turret, and on the front of it, the guy goes through on it, and it's like, that's a piece of technology that you invented because you are using these Stargates. Unless you bring a heavy machine gun through the thing, it's already armored and ready to go. And it's nice to explore more things like that, because
that's always just walked through the gate.
There's such a beautiful aspect to the idea of these huge universes we get, where you do settings like Stargate, like Star Wars or Trek, or 40K, or the other ones where even where that's kind of messy on the canon, the sheer depth of it lets you explore these ideas and feel like you're not completely wasting your time, because that series is still, that IP is going to be there, and it's fun. It's just. So, like, how would you get a tank through all these things? And what kind of setup should you be doing when you're not just putting people through?
Well, we were doing jumpers through them. I mean, so what if you've got it's basically an extended jumper, right? I mean, You know.
Or a rail line that looks like that. It just
Yeah.
goes through. And even the idea of, and it's a fun one for set, exploring, and and you can't do this in a 10 episode season, but when you got bottle episodes, you're just with a design team that's trying to build the cargo passenger line for the train that looks like a bunch of jumpers stuck together and how that moves out. And that is very much one of those things that evolves out of trying to think through, what would this actually look like?
Yeah.
We always have the gate, the most valuable piece of infrastructure on a planet that is usually abandoned in some forested. Where was that? Is that by Vancouver or was it?
Oh yeah, always by Vancouver. Yeah. Actually, it's all condos now. I don't think we have to go pretty far out to find a forest in Vancouver now, I think.
But you can do it. I mean, you get those. I'm not thinking those horrible set stages from like Star Trek Next Generation season 1. Which
have you noticed that though? Like, if you noticed that a lot of the new shows now have basically reverted back to the old Star Trek thing.
Yeah,
because they've got the video wall, which has all this beautiful stuff behind it, and it's always a flat with a couple of fake stones on it. It reminds me of the old Star Trek episodes.
Well, most people don't realize, and I think you go back and watch those, and you can see it on 4K. It's fun. As an extra laugh, it's like, well, that's a nice matte painting back there.
Yeah.
And gorgeous. You think that must have cost a fortune to make. I wonder what happened to that matte painting. But you got the sea line in the background. I think that's part of why you're not going to do big cities and a lot of these things, because it's hard to film with those. But this Stargate abandoned somewhere north of Vancouver, wherever it was, or the quarry outside of London. Instead of having that, what would it actually look like on a planet when that's piece of infrastructure 1? So either this is the center of a city or it's the center of a bunker complex. Kind of like it was at I forgot, it was a Cheyenne Mountain. And each think it's effectively one or the other, right? Or a bit of both. There should be so many weapons trained on that place that your ears would itch every time you walk by.
Yeah. Well, or if it's such there's such backwards communities, then it would be a source of magic, a source of I mean,
they worship that thing. It's the temple they go to, and it was often treated that way. That was one of the other fun things about that era, was you got to explore the anthropology of all these new cultures.
Yeah.
And
we moved far away from that. By the end of it, we moved quite far away from that.
And I mean, there was more than just that. It's nice to have an explanation of different ones, but that was one of the things we see on Stargate Universe is we got the big focus on people there. That was we got a lot of crew-centric ones, which did not always make them look better because they were trying to do the various shades of gray cast. It's I want to watch heroes. They don't have to be perfect. I don't want perfect heroes. I didn't look for Mary Sue, but I want a hero with flaws and occasional anti-hero. I don't want a bunch of people I slap around in court martial.
Yeah. It's true though, that's definitely I mean, I wonder where we're at now, because I mean, most of the shows I see do not have particularly it's not particularly nice. But look at Pluribus is a perfect example. I don't know if you've sat down to that yet.
Not yet, just a few trailer.
But she's difficult to. I mean, she's not a classic leading lady on this stuff for sure.
Dark Matter comes to mind immediately up on why. But that one actually had the same kind of grim tone for the era, but the characters felt like they were a lot more human.
It had more of a Stargate vibe to it for sure. Yeah. It had a sense of comedy to it that I think
it did. Yeah. It had, and that was one of the things that made Stargate good, is it didn't have, not just the Wormhole Extreme episodes, but that they were willing to, take shots themselves. And you always want Enterprise doesn't take itself too seriously and acknowledges the fans too. But it doesn't break the fourth wall, because everyone knows you don't want to do in the middle of the show. Sometimes it says, "Hey, here we are." It's nice to have the ones where they just do that occasionally.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I can't remember. I know that the producers didn't like. I don't think they liked the behind the scenes stuff too much, because I do think they're also of an older era of television as well. I mean, Martin's not. Martin's newer to the scene, but they grew up on that. You don't break that fourth wall.
Yeah.
You never look behind the curtain.
I would say that Deadpool is an exception to that rule, not a because you have a show that's entirely fourth wall breaking. But it's not what I'd ever do for the main season. But when you have 26 episodes, that's like a broken horn here. But it is nice to have those bottle episodes or those side bits where you just, hey, today this one's just for the fans, and it's just it's funny that way. And it's and they did it well there. But it was clearly fourth wall violating, but not canon fourth wall violating. So that was kind of a nice flavor to it. then it's different style for doing that. But what changes into what the settings for the characters are? You still always have to have that story that's driven off the characters, and they shifted from the new civilization of the week,
Right.
a lot of times in early Stargate or Star Trek at that time, to more focused on the cast, which the main cast, which makes sense too. But there's not to follow up on that. Like we have
Well, and ongoing stories too. Like we moved to, nobody wanted to do those standalone shows.
Yeah.
You know,
And
I miss
for a while,
those.
it was always the standalone. And then you had like the serial effect, which I think Deep Space Nine helped with a lot on that because they started doing that. Babylon 5, that was the one that really started pushing that, where like, hey, the stuff that happened last week still applies.
Yeah.
And at least part of that was back in the day, you didn't know what order the stuff was going to air in. So
Yeah, that's true. Oh my God, that's true. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
last time on X. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It can happen sometimes. You're like, what's the pilot for Star Trek? Episode 4.
It's so true though, because now I think also that we've just I think the worst thing that's happened to film and TV since Stargate first began, I mean back in the SG-1 days, is that it's become IP, it's become product, it's become it's not about the storytelling, it's about getting that franchise out there and talking numbers and demographics. And
I'd always thought one of the neat things about, and we've won the early year, well, not super early, but early YouTube zone is that YouTube is not the same as TV or radio. It more clearly what analyzes like analogizes into something like writing in general. Is if you go into the publishing industry and people say, well, I'd like to be a YouTuber one day. What's that look like? And say, well, if you write travel guides and you ask a fantasy writer what they have in common, there might be a little bit of overlap. Maybe a fantasy writer would be good at travel guides. They invent new words to describe them. But by and large, the your coffee table book on motorcycles and your sci-fi novel have nothing in common.
Yeah.
Not even on the marketing side.
Though they're seen as the same thing, basically. They're just another product.
And of course, in some degree, there is. You're shipping that book. You're displaying it to the to people at the Barnes and Nobles or on Amazon the same way. And so there's some truth that with TV shows too. But one of the things I loved about YouTube was that it was a bookstore. It wasn't these selected things. You couldn't get canceled for your numbers, etc. Most of these shows would not exist, mine included, if you got that 5th season syndication.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean Look, I think there's also something interesting that's happening here, which is, I think because of AI, we're seeing a lot of AI generated content to the point where it's exhausting now. I think it is going to become unmanageable if it isn't already. And the idea that anyone could technically create a Stargate episode.
I've seen some that I actually thought were the real deal for
really. Exactly. And those trailers, man, if I see another freaking Marvel trailer that I think is going to be a Marvel trailer, I mean, but the idea being that you can, because that stuff can be created, how important it is for things like your show or stupid little burn and learn chats with people, for me, was I think we crave humanity.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be addressed. And in a new show, we've got to be able to figure out what that is. Just
a personal level, I'm very pro AI in general, so I've used a fair amount of it here and there in video clips for like things you just literally couldn't create. And I was, of course, doing strictly voiceover stuff until relatively recently. I mean, on camera like this occasionally, but the episodes were always voiceover 100%.
Oh, that's right. Now we're seeing you more.
Yeah, on camera as of like May. And it was because I just got so overwhelmed by the sheer amount of AI stuff that was hitting. I was like, why don't I try doing one on camera? And people really liked that effect because it was the same thing. And again, I like the access people have to AI for creative purposes because it lets somebody who doesn't have the skill sets to be doing those things create those works. But there definitely is a lot of slop going on out there, and it does encourage some amount of laziness. Same as like when we got independent publishing, you see this huge skyrocket in accessibility to print your own book. That was a good thing overall, but did also flood the market with a lot of a lot of fan-on type crap. And
oh my God. I mean, well, that was everyone's concern when desktop publishing first showed up. They're like, oh my God, everyone can write a book now. It's like, but should they?
Yep. And curating is nice. And again, you curate so that you have a channel that's curated. You don't have something like YouTube is open to everybody and should stay that way. But you might have curated stuff. So be like, this is something we've actually kind of vetted as a little bit higher quality for what hits your search engine. And to some degree, YouTube is tackling that well because they kind of want to see what happens too. So I'll give them the plaudits on that, even though they usually are source of irritation for most creators.
Oh my God, the algorithm stuff drives me crazy. But part of that is the way people respond to it. Like, I feel like if you are chasing an algorithm the whole time, I don't think you're creating.
Yeah.
I think you're just basically you're just spitting stuff out for a machine. You might as well be an AI.
And I don't want to say there's no art to doing it that way, but it's the same. Like I don't like to use cover artists for my show too much because it's not that they're not a good artist. It's just that they're cranking something out because it's, this is get it done. I used to have one who was a big fan of the show, and so it got me spoiled on it because he really loved the episodes and would watch do a cover for it. And he started working with other folks like, well, this is a job to them, and it's it's not full time. They got a lot of other clients got to handle, so it just wasn't the same. And but it's not that there wasn't still some art involved in that, to be sure, but it's diminished. It's not like that more pure art. I don't want to get all postmodern, snobby about it, but there is art, and then there's stuff you just get done, and there's a difference there.
Well, and I used to hunt high and low over the internet looking for images that made sense for whatever I was talking about in a newsletter or something, and the reality is now I can tailor it specifically, and I'm not taking a job away from anyone else because I couldn't afford to pay someone.
Yeah, I wasn't going to use someone for. For me, I guess I could maybe use a cover artist. It wasn't like it was impossible, but I didn't like to work with them, so I wouldn't. It was so much easier. And for me, the big place was always Pixabay or Getty. I use Getty a lot these days because Pixabay was great back in the day because it was free images being made by artists. You just want to show the stuff off. Now it is mostly AI generated, which again I don't mind if it looks good, but the quality level was kind of dropped down there because people are just throwing it out there as soon as it's ready, so it gets a little bit flooded. Whereas it's still kind of curated, and that's a hard pick on it because for me, I want to be able to show people what the thing looks like, and if there's no art at all for this thing, it's hard to find an example because it's trying to draw off these things. It's fundamentally a search engine, but it is fun. And it can be an artistic process too. But it's these are the things we try to experiment with new technology and see what happens with it. And sometimes you get some false starts. So
I love it. I mean, I love it also as an artistic thing. I love it in that there's stuff. Sometimes I'll just sit down and generate stuff because I'm just like, oh, what would that look like? What would this look like? I mean, I feel like I don't think that's taking away. It's got me drawing more than I ever have. I have a little sketchbook now that I jot stuff
I've
down.
been doing more. Part of it was I got tired. It's like I can't get the computer to do what I want on this, and I can't find anything that looks like it online. And so it's got me back into doing my own cover art the last couple of months. And I don't draw too much myself. I used to in earlier days.
I just doodle. I don't draw. I just literally just doodle. But
that was one of the things I liked about the early days when we started things like Paint as available on the computer, and people say, "Well, that's not real art. There's no, you can't feel the canvas under you. You can't smell the paint, get the textures, taste it even." And I was like, "Well, I believe you. That's a huge part of painting, but tell that to a sculptor and say they're not doing work. It's just different."
And how far back do you want to go? Like, you're not mixing your own colors as a painter, so then you're not really. You're being limited by what paints are available. I mean, they're telling you
that chicken in that soup. No, you did not. So I hope you can do a soup.
But that's it. I mean, like I feel like these are the growing pains we have with any new technology.
It's just not to land on like a definite position early on. Like obviously, I have to experiment with AI kind of because of my job, but there are places where it's overused, to be sure, or low quality. Same as independent publishing. And then there are other places where it's really genuinely helpful. I have folks saying like photography, that's not real art. I should say I remember reading about people saying photography is not real art. I remember
feeling that.
Yeah,
frankly,
you haven't done much photography.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's it. And then, but now, I mean, now a lot of the photography part of it is taken, all the technical side of it's almost looked after for you now.
Yeah. And the AI is so good for actually helping on that. So like I'll film something in front of the teleprompter and then think, well, how'd the lighting go? The AI is amazing. I mean, I'll tell you what, you need to tweak exactly how much.
Wow.
It's so good for that.
Have you played with, oh God, what is it called? It's the editing software, Descript. Have you played with Descript at all?
No.
It's extraordinary because it basically allows you to text edit a video piece.
Jeez.
So you upload the video piece, it transcribes it all for you, and you can cut and paste based on what is written. For someone like you, it might be really useful because when it's just you and talking, you can. It's a much easier edit, and it's not crazy expensive either, which I was really surprised at. Yeah, I don't use it a ton.
You experiment with stuff and see what kind of works on it, but
that's it.
I really did a lot of the video ones. The two things I tend to stay away with from AI a lot myself, and just a matter of taste, is I find it very handy for like reviewing a script or outlining a script or bouncing ideas off of like, hey, give me some.
It's rubber ducking. I love it. Yeah.
But I don't like to let it help me with anything writing wise because that's my favorite part of the job. So
Yeah, but
and
that's
I tried to use to make video clips. This is back to my old Blender days. It took so long to render the clips. I still use some of them. Like, here's 10 seconds of clip, and it took a whole day. And when you put out a couple episodes a week, you can't do that. So
I remember getting in so much trouble because I had an audition and it was supposed to be set in an old library in a kind of a weird sci-fi thing. So I shot it in front of a green screen, and then I was rendering a backdrop with motes of dust and shafts of light. And my agent's like, "Where's the freaking audition? It's late." I'm like, "Yeah, but I haven't rendered it yet." He's like, "Just give me the damn green screen." You know, those are I think part of it's just that I think probably you is the same. We just didn't have these tools before, so it's just so.
Or even because there was a learning curve on learning. Again, one of the things I like about the AI is can walk you through technical stuff pretty fast. I've had a green screen for years, and other than a couple of experiments that weren't even for the show, I've never actually gotten onto using it just because I'm not going to backdrop that either. It's I think people overuse the artificial backdrops on
all
things
the time.
And if you just want more guests in the place, you're at the hotel room, that's fine. But you do notice, especially if you're trying to be the person who's actually on the screen that people are watching, don't do it. It doesn't.
This is my closet backdrop. It's all generated. It's not real. Actually,
I'm so surprised the like that hasn't come out too.
I'm waiting for it all to collapse down on me because I've got it all. Yeah.
Well, I was saying before we started is a lot of people don't tend to realize when you voiceover is the most common place people tend to film those is inside a closet because the sound coverage is so good for those. Just going to read off the script on a recording, and I got sound baffling all over, all the paint on the wall, all just sound baffling paste with no panels. So it is a big deal trying to keep the baseline noise behind. Low.
Worry about it though, like, but you worry that there's so much content out there on you that you could generate your voice, you could generate your image.
Yeah,
I mean, there are people who are gonna. I'm sure there'll be people pirating crap all over the place. But,
probably. And I guess the question is, and this is something I kind of go back to in the early YouTube days when people were passing stuff out. Is like, well, is this that stuff's still on BitChute? And I gave them permission. It was like a brand new company at that time. But I don't really advertise that because it doesn't have ads on it. But the kind of the difference of that is if someone takes your stuff and people like it, they're going to come up and show up at some point in time to watch the real deal.
Yeah.
You just see what the difference is.
I've said that about films and TV, the pirating of films and TV. Yeah. I'm like, look, if I like something and I find it that it's being pirated, I'll buy it. I'll support them.
And you don't want to. I mean, you don't want to be too universal. But like we'd said a few years back that streaming killed piracy, but it didn't. It did put it down a little bit, but that's kind of coming back now because so many streaming things are getting very expensive, and part of that is not just the profit; it is they're spending so much more on production. So on the one hand, that's awesome because you're seeing that shift from the films and TVs to doing the streaming, so they want to bring the budgets with them. On the other hand, it is starting to turn it from that I remember some of the stuff that came out on Netflix when it was first out. It was early YouTube quality in many cases too, and for that matter, all of us who have the long form content just the beginning of the year, we're on YouTube TV now. If for ones we play these curated shows, so it's which I was shocked by the amount of cost with that, but more expensive for it. But it makes sense. People moving on it, and I think I love high budget stuff. The new Dune film was amazing visually.
Oh God, yeah, me too. But I'm not sure I love it for this.
No, yeah,
because I feel like there's a look. I hate the term authenticity. I'm like, because if you have to use the term authenticity, I feel like you're lying already.
It sounds like geeky.
Yeah, and it's just not. The reality is people want a connection.
Yeah,
and I think that yes, I'm sure you can AI generate all of this. They can generate this conversation and everything, but the reality is it's still not a conversation between two people. And I think that's I keep going back to the 80s. I was in a band, I was a drummer, and then all these digital drums came out, and I'm like, oh no, there's going to be no drummers. And guess what? I go to concerts now. There's whole orchestras, as well as drummers, as well as guitarists, and all of which could be done on a synthesizer. But they're not because people want to see. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Ease pop. For those of us who grew up with the Apollo landings being on MTV back when MTV had music on it, I was actually rewatching his old Thompson Twins video.
Yeah. I went and saw them in concert. Thompson Twins.
I'd never seen the video for it. For some reason, I just never actually seen it. It was was Dr. Doctor.
Oh, Dr. Doctor.
It's so bad.
Oh yeah.
And I
Oh
still
yeah.
watched it like 8
But
times.
I remember at the time thinking how lush and
Yeah,
and
and
also even the sound of
radio,
the music
radio
sounded.
star, right? So it was all going to be gone, and it was such a
Yeah.
higher quality to even that era. And some of the sets, Police's Synchronicity 2 video, and then you're like,
Yeah.
oh God, what did you build there for this music video? Like a
It,
garbage sheet, but it was very high, expensive.
yeah. Well,
But
or even the Duran Duran, the big Duran Duran, Union of the Snake, look, all just made out of garbage bags, and yeah, I mean, it's funny even just listening to music now, how thin and underproduced things sound from even just back in the 80s and 90s, how much richer the stuff is now, and yet how much people are drawn back to it. Like my son is still listening to stuff from the 90s.
some of that's still nostalgia. I mean, but well, I shouldn't have nostalgia of a lot of 60s and 70s stuff and stuff. I still like All Around Watchtower, and at least part of that's Bear McCreary and
Yeah,
Past fault, but still, it's good music though.
yeah.
Nice.
Well, it's funny. I listened to Supertramp the other day, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is great! Like, this is better than anything. Like, just." And they were just like, just another band back in the day. But now you listen to it, you're like, oh my God, their voices, the orchestration, the music, it's just extraordinary.
You get some very good productions from. I was watching Forbidden Planet a month or two ago, 1960.
Yeah.
Pre-Apollo, it's great. It's Leslie Nielsen and Odd Comedy War too, which is great.
Yeah.
Especially when you grew up on him Odd Comedy, but a lot of this, I mean, a lot of this place you still see the wires in the background, but it's still.
It's the intent.
Yeah.
I always said this about Faulty Towers, where Faulty Towers, when you think about Faulty Towers and you crack up about the things that made you laugh, you watch it, you're like, none of this is like they're missing each other on pretend hits and trips, and it doesn't matter because it's the intent of what they're trying to do that makes you laugh. And I think that's a big part of it.
It's not in 4K though.
Yeah. Well, and we saw that transition. Look, we went from film to HD to 4K on Stargate. I mean, or 2K, I guess. And then now I'm assuming it's going to be filmed in 8 and then shown and broadcast in 4.
No, max out at 20K because that's the eyeballs maximum resolution.
I don't think we care. I think it's going to max out when they can stop selling us new TVs. I think is.
I do mine in 4K. A lot of clips are it's 1080 or even 720, and that's just kind of it's because then you have more room for it to.
I've just upgraded this so that it can do proper HD at 1080 instead of whatever it was doing before. I sort of don't care. Like I feel like
it does not matter. It really doesn't matter that much. But on the back end, when you're doing camera stuff, it helps because then you can zoom in more on bits later on. Yeah. But for the most part, nobody cares. They watch it on their phone.
No. And I don't expect anyone to watch stuff anyways. I expect it to be on in the background like I do, like I listen to everything.
Well, that was why I always did voiceovers. I didn't think anyone wanted to see me on the screen anyway. So the visuals there kind of set the mood because I couldn't have done that very, cinematically anyway without having all of Pixar for doing that kind of rate.
Right.
But at the same time, I realized because I had people come back and say, it's so nice to see you on screen. And then I realized that I liked a lot of shows that were switched over that format. And that's a tricky one for AI to get into, though, because I kind of like the idea of AI for voice, although I experimented in one episode and it was horrible. But with voice, I have the speech impediment issue, so I kind of was always a little overly optimistic on how that would work out. But I have a huge uncanny valley thing going on. So the AI videos people keep showing, I do not like them personally because not that I'm not impressed by them, but a lot of times there'd be something just was it Final Fantasy's movie that they had really good,
beautiful, still uncanny valley.
Right, yeah, it was worse because it was so much better, and it will get there. Someone's already that impresses, but I can't look at them for very long. Now it did good. I just zone out a little bit, so I'm not staring at it because if I stare at it, it starts to get me, and then I can't watch it at that point because the uncanny valley thing has been triggered.
I wonder if we're all going to wander around feeling slightly ill because our brain thinks that we're being poisoned because things don't look quite right. You know what I mean? Like,
well, we all had that day. It was like this, the way the sun set or something like that. I was like, geez, is this the Matrix I'm in? Because that looks pixelated. So if I walked to the other side of that road right now, would it just be gone? The other side of the world. But solipsism aside, I think that is one of those things that comes up because I like to remind people to say, well, you don't assume that you're in the Matrix because somebody put you in there. You should assume you're in something like the Matrix because you wanted to be in there.
Right.
And the thing you paid a lot for, the thing that was the $1 trillion invention, was the temporary suppression of your memories.
Right.
When you're in a
Right.
dream, you don't forget that who you are, but you're not really thinking about
Mm.
the fact that it's real or not. So there's probably a way to do that.
Well, okay, let's jump into another Stargate one then, another Stargate future stuff, because brain computer interfaces. I mean, you and
Huge.
I both have a bit of an obsession with that,
Yeah.
for whatever our reasons are. I saw your talk about it recently. You did was it was that in the top five one you did, or
Yeah,
was that
the
yeah?
the top of the year one, yeah, five sci-fi fantasies that could become a reality. So we did BCI on that. We did a couple episodes on it a couple of years back. So we have more deep dives on these things because I got 800 episodes these days.
But
I
that's
mean,
something that we've been talking about with sci-fi for ages, and I
yeah,
think I'd love to see the nuance. You know what I
mhm.
mean? Like a little bit more nuance to it now, as opposed to
Well,
just like,
yeah.
oh, cram a giant thing in the back of your head.
It's
Like,
usually the big one is neural jacks, and it looks funny or it looks okay depending on what you try and go for with the show, but it's just to let you interact with the giant machine,
right,
the
right.
battle pod or whatever
To
the heck it is
excuse the bad
you're doing.
effect. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's that's the usual presentation.
Mm.
What we don't see with that is all the little things that might be popping up, like, oh hey, when I thought, what is 72 times 2,927? The answer just came to my brain. So it was only a number because that's what it was. That's that linkage. It's
Mm.
recognizes when I'm thinking numbers. You can tell what those numbers are, and it plugs me in the answer.
Mm.
And maybe shows down my eyeball so I can make sure that it was the thing that was actually being done.
Well, because that's the ultimate. That is the ultimate virtual reality to me. Like I've almost jumped over the whole VR
Yeah,
AR thing because I feel like it's just better to tap straight into the mechanism.
I think in a lot of ways it would be too. And then again, with any of these kind of technologies, it's nice to see what that actually looks like as it rolls out in non-dystopian sense. Is that you're going to, just like anything else we do, lots of different versions. You might not be okay with having something directly jacked into your optic nerves, so you just wear glasses instead. That they're not quite as good, but they get the job done. Same as you don't want to have a calculator put in your head, so you just carry a calculator with you, or just say to your phone what is 7 times whatever the heck it is. And it's not as fast, not quite as good, but it's good enough for most of our purposes.
You
And
mentioned a laparoscopy version of the interior, the brain implant, which I'd never heard of, which is extraordinary. I mean, the idea that if you can get it done as a laparoscopy, just go up through a vein.
yeah,
Wow. I mean,
it's an awesome approach to doing it. And even some of these things, because so much of what we're doing is not trying to detect the individual neuron, we're trying to detect the potential. Like you can train someone to basically use one of these things like a universal programmable remote, and so it doesn't matter what yours are. You're just learning to think.
yeah.
Button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, button 5, and you shut the thing off at night, or it automatically goes off when you're asleep because it's very easy to tell when someone's asleep. And you are learning to do this with control, so you're not accidentally flicking the lights on, but Control X in your head, so to speak, is the you send this image to a friend right next to me or something like that. And it's a universal keyboard in your head that does not require any kind of implantation. It might work better if we did it, but you can just put some kind of like hairnet on that
Yeah,
would
and just pick up whatever whatever signals you get.
Or even without that, a room that was. I don't think you want to live inside an MRI machine for a number of reasons, but it doesn't have to be all that accurate or all that high powered. We're not trying to actually scan your brain at that point. We're just trying to get a small build up here or here or here that's recognizing, and that becomes a universal keyboard that you can use to access stuff. So it's like a blink, click, or whatever it is. You have control over that, and it would be interesting to see that more explored in sci-fi for what that looks like. In terms of like Stargate, for instance, we didn't ever get that many high tech cultures. We mostly was getting the lower tech ones, and
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I would love to see more. I always felt like I wanted to see something from
And I think the original Doctor Who pattern was, what was it? One historical, one futuristic, and one present day. It was kind of like this one we past is a little bit more educational.
Yeah.
Kind of, and this one's set in the future. So you get the caveman, and then you'll see the Daleks. That's season 1. And you're back home again, and that is a nice way of kind of. I mean, you don't have to do an even 1/3 mix, but so you got Stargate when we go meet the strange tribe, and you got the Stargate when we go meet the high tech. We'll deal with the high tech evil civilization or cool new civilization that's not evil, or the kind of I forget what they call it. They got wiped out in the original series, but one of the high tech civilizations that would not give us any of their technology. But it's nice to see what interactions like that could look like. And at this point, you don't have to do that anymore because in the franchise, they've already got access to all these super huge technologies that just aren't in the infrastructure. So there's no one's going to be like, oh, hey, we've got this cool new tech you've never seen. It's more that we've got this infrastructure that you don't have. It's shown up to this island with a smartphone that they don't have the ability to build themselves, but they know what it is and know how to use it.
Well, and it's a great opportunity for us to project onto. I mean, that's the whole beauty of science fiction, isn't it? Is the idea of like, let's say you've got a culture that you've got a species that has completely embraced crypto and whatever and gambling, and just see what that does to the, or is completely. Is all about brain-computer interfaces, or is, another one you touched on, which I am fascinated in, is the whole sort of the idea of these artificial wombs, these sort of like bags, the bio bags.
Nice. And that's one of those ones that I think that really will be something we see in our lifetime too, not just the folks like 18. Because it does play into a market that very much exists, which is people wanting to have children safely. In context where it's not always going to be available. So just like every other fertility medicine, it has a popular support that's going to be there.
Well, and imagine that on another planet somewhere. Like imagine, like a baby farm where the young people go in and earn their living.
You can't grow our kids on the surface because there's too much radiation. And so we grow them all down below. And that could be dystopian or non-dystopian. That's a good episode concept. There is you're going to go ahead and it gets grown in all wood vaults when they're young and safely, and then they go up to more radiation-soaked surface. What does that look like? What's that planet look like? And the ones that those who say they can't leave the planet. We don't see gates breaking down. It's like a 50 million year old system, right? But the gates just keep working. Even the old SGU ones, you do that. So you got maybe an AI that runs those things, or mini AI, whatever it would be.
You can also play with viruses too. The technology of cyber stuff would be really neat.
So many options for what would that look like. We're trying to block access to.
Or a worm, like some kind of a
gate worm,
a gate worm that just goes and knocks out.
Even because one of the things with the wormholes, and Stargates aren't wormholes exactly, but is that they are more likely to function to another universe. And we play around a Stargate is what if you were tapping into a space where you had a gigantic worm creature that's like, oh hey, I'm just going to come slide through your gates.
Well, or also, you talk about it like you're saying that we're it's storing and transferring it. I mean, could there be malware within the. You come out spouting ads for something.
I could, if I was building a gate thing where it was the teleportation style, where you could just build it from the information. What's one of the first protocols you'd be snapping into that thing? Well, not just like an iris, but you'd have, here's my killer robots I can just summon out, right there out the gate from whatever matter they're just being built on the spot. So there's people walking through the gate. And now, as the defense mechanism, or someone's taking over my gate, while I was gone, out, 100 death machines that make the Terminator look like, little Elmo doll.
Which is something else. Which is so funny because the reality in our world now is that it's not Terminator, it is the Elmo doll. Like the reality is it's little FPV drones now that are guided missiles or little ocean-based system drones, little ocean-based boat drones that take out helicopters and entire battleships.
And it doesn't scale infinitely downward because you start getting the issue of like, you can take a drone out with another smaller drone. It's like, or just a flat cannon, but you don't keep going smaller and smaller necessarily. Those are probably about your minimum size. You can maybe get a little bit smaller using non-organic.
Well, unless you go swarm. If you go swarm drones, I guess.
To a degree, but then you have to worry about them being knocked out because they have to talk. And
right.
But they can do it in encrypted fashion. We can always still blast that, and so they're using, and there's, but the whole idea is explore that and see what happens with it. We don't actually have to worry. If it's, even for the exploring it for like my show, we're trying to be very hard real science or sci-fi. We're not really worried about every last little thing that could happen. It's conceptual. But for the show, you can get away with a lot of things. That's like, you get forgiven, right? And if people are complaining about the accuracy of your show or your sci-fi, that means they are still watching.
Yeah. The number of times people will hate watch things is extra. I will hate watch. I'll watch stuff just going like, come on, go back. You know what I mean? Like it's like
unbelievable that you did that stupid thing.
Let's see it again.
But for people to pedantically argue on Reddit or wherever it is about what's going on in even franchise, that does mean there have to be enough people who actually enjoyed it to make it worth doing. So that's sci-fi writer asks, well, how do I get this going on here is going to be realistic? And I'm saying, well, I like science realism depth, to be plumbed into.
Yeah.
Pick some area of science you're comfortable with, and kind of deep dive that in the novel. But don't worry too much about the rest of it. Either hand wave it or not, because readers could complain about it. After several books, when it starts to break down, that means they bought several books and other people too, because they can't complain when there's nobody who has read it too. So, so there's that upside.
This makes me think of like back in the old days watching Doctor Who when they clamped on this little science bit at the end. I see a lot of post-show shows now, and they never did that for Stargate. I would love to see that with a new show where we could talk about that.
Episodes a little bit were kind of like that. But didn't those were beforehand and pre-filmed. I really like those ones too, and they work better for like on streaming service. Go back and watch them or even see them more.
Yeah.
They did that for Rings of Power, and it was actually one of the things I liked more about that was the after show on that.
Doctor Who for me, I love Doctor Who. I also loved the post show because it was all about the science.
Yeah, and it also lets you, whether you're done the science or even if it's one of the ones where you're messing with somebody's canon. A lot of times, they do actually know what the canon was, and they wanted to have it in there, but they couldn't for some production reason.
Yeah.
And then the explanation of why would it be that gets out there, and I think it's not actually going to be to make anything better, but the people who are going to watch that are also the ones who are going to be upset by that stuff in the first place. There's your chance to tell them why you did it, and that's a little bit more.
It's the equivalent of getting up in the middle and going like, "Okay, this was supposed to be,"
And they've done that on some TV shows. They just stop it. I was trying to remember what that was. They just freeze in the middle, and the character starts talking to the audience.
Right. Oh God, what was that?
That was into that fourth wall breaking.
Yeah. I'm not sure I want to go there with Stargate, but yeah. There's so much stuff to cover. I guess we should probably go to questions, but because I realize normally I'm like, we'll talk for half an hour, and then we've talked for an hour and a quarter. So
every interview I do with anybody always takes twice as long as they were expecting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so true. Well, also there's just so much. This is just so much fun. I think the one thing, not one. There's a million things, but one of the things that I really want to see in this one. And we've touched on the whole idea of like more advanced civilizations, but is also the use of robotics and drones. I mean, we were stuck with a gas-powered MALP,
Yeah. And it was one of the coolest things. The idea of a MALP was very at the time, that was very advanced technology.
Yeah. And my genius MALP on a stick, of course, as well, which is really
just stick
video camera on a stick.
It works.
Yeah. But just how far we've come with that, like the fact that look, you could shoot entire episodes with a drone now if you wanted to. I mean, it's so funny how the technologies both. I love that there's within this discussion there's what can happen in the show with these technologies, but also how the shows can be created by these technologies.
Yeah. And the ability to do some very nice establishing shots with a drone that you just could not have done without. Even a helicopter crew is kind of limited. And it was the cost on that was insane.
I don't know why they bother with helicopter crews anymore. Because frankly, it's dangerous. They can hurt the people in the helicopter or the people on the ground.
I think those are mostly going away, but there's still some out there, and it's on the one hand just saying because that's very high. That's a high skill profession, but it's going to be one of those that just goes away because it would never really make sense to do it. And but it is cool to watch how that adapts, and you get so much better options for shooting.
Well, and autonomous vehicles too. I mean, the fact that we don't even. You don't even. I remember them giving courses on how to pilot these things, and I was like, "Who needs to pilot them? We'll just you'd map it into an iPad, and it'll do it for you." I mean, that was the
auto corrections and things like that. And of course, you get to explore that from a more military perspective than Stargate, because then it's carrying a camera, it's carrying a gun, or it's carrying a laser, so that there's no blood on the set. It's the beat.
I wonder what the rules are on that.
I have no idea. I mean, it should be a lot less in streaming circumstances because it's not on broadcast. But
so you could probably just go full on gore if you wanted to. But I'm not sure.
Although I hope they won't all do that, because one of the things I do like about a lot of the old ones is you got the disintegration ray that works because it's so easy to just pause, dig out the set, but and then fuzzle with the film footage. But I really don't want to see excessive gore pop up in these things. There's a place for it. I'm not prudish about that. You want to make a horror movie going to have gore all over the place, but
I liked the family aspect to it. I love the fact that you'd have grandparents, parents, and kids sitting down and watching the show. And I know that sounds really old Pollyanna stuff, but the reality is I think you can explore really interesting concepts without nudity and violence, or without excessive nudity and violence, perhaps.
And there are some it fits. Game of Thrones, it fits, and at the same time, there's ones where it just does not. And I was going to say, it's not saying for Stargate, but the pilot episode did have that one.
Yeah,
shot.
the pilot episode was full frontal nudity, right? I mean, that was they thought it was going to be sexy.
It was on. Oh God, I was going to call it Skinamax,
Wasn't it?
but
It was Cinemax.
Yeah, it was Cinemax. So, but that was like hey, you're on HBO. It's at Cinemax. You can show that.
Yeah. So let's do it.
Yeah. And
I feel like we've moved away from that too, though, because the reality is, if you want to see that now, you got a whole internet for that. You don't need to include it in the show.
It was options for that, especially with AI.
Oh my god. AI is gonna. Oh my god. The whole shipping thing has got to be. I didn't even think of that.
Well, yeah. That's another one of those things you get an awful lot of.
Wow. I do not want to see what Rodney's been up to on the internet.
And let's both agree to never, ever, ever Google that ourselves.
I'm not Googling. Yeah. That's
bleach is going to be a real thing one of these days, because I like to go and read the comments on my show all the time. That's where I get all my ideas from.
Oh yeah.
But it's also how I learned about things like Rule 34 in the first place, and it's like, oh good God. So
what is Rule 44?
Rule 34 is the one about how if there's a port of it, they will find it on the internet.
Oh God, of course, right. If it's been thought of, it's been effed
then of course
on
it gets
the
stuck
internet.
in my head. I think, well, what's the effect of that on human-alien interactions? Because one of the episodes that was wanted for years now is sexy aliens. I haven't done that one yet. This is not what you think it's going to be. It's not going to be the green-skinned Orion chick from Star Trek. It's going to be, hey, that thing's got 50 tentacles. Do you want to sleep with it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, the problem then is once you know Rule 34, the answer is yes. And in a post-scarcity environment, a culture-scarce civilization that might number itself in the trillions, you're going to actually have enough people to form an entire diplomatic envoy to that.
Yeah. There's going to be
the question
whole
is,
channels dedicated to it.
Right? Do you want your ambassador to be, that freaky?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I mean, there is something interesting about that. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't sort of explore, the sexuality side of stuff or even the violence side of stuff, but I just think it needs to be done in I want to say in a Stargate way. I don't know. I mean, I used to say Disney, but now Disney owns Marvel, and
these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they did have a fair number of things that had more violence, things like that, and too, besides like the classic princess movies.
We killed a lot of people too.
Yeah, you go back and watch the old Superman cartoons or early Batman. It's like, oh, they never kill anybody. It's like, you just watch him in the original film. We threw some guy into a volcano.
Yeah,
just because.
Yeah, you just didn't get to see the flesh being burned from his body, is it? Yeah.
It wasn't like it was the last resort either. I didn't feel like taking him into the station to get processed.
Right.
But it was, it is different when you start putting that in there. And I would just, I don't want to see it into grim or dark or sci-fi either. And you get explosions like that in books too. They wouldn't necessarily get in TV. Ian M. Banks, in his one novel, Accession, explores what it'd be like to be an ambassador to an alien civilization that's simply unpleasant at almost every possible level. I do not want to live with these people either, because physically they are repulsive and mentally they are repulsive. And he explores that. It's interesting to see the character of that person. But you can have room for fiction like that. And you can have room, and this is the cool thing about this streaming environment. Then you have room for something you actually want to sit down with your kids and watch, and that's a big one. I've got kids these days, and we're homeschooling them, so I kind of make sure they're getting influence.
Yeah.
I'm a third-generation geek, and a lot of people who go into the sciences and STEM, they've got somebody who they grew up watching the stuff with, and we all have a right or two that we are like, that was our connection. If that goes away, where you can't have people who are a certain age able to watch these franchises, then you are losing one of your biggest recruiting tools for STEM. And I love science fiction for itself. It's an art to me, but at the same time, it seems like my show, or when you're doing paintings or art or books, we are the pipeline that keeps people interested, both in, I'd love to have a scientist in the family because I like Star Trek, so they encourage the kid that way, or I love this stuff growing up, so I went into STEM. Or even just, hey, they want a lot of taxes for this new science project. Why would I possibly want to pay for that? Oh, yeah, I've seen this on Star Trek, so I love this potential future. If you want a powerful STEM-based economy, you need to have people who live and breathe it and want to see that come in, and to get your scientists and your people who get willing to pay for all that, willing to invest in all that, and trust in all that. So those family-friendly shows, they matter. And I think
I agree. I mean, having got, my kid is now at university. I'm one of the pleasures we still have is when he comes back, we'll sit down and watch a show and discuss it together, because it also opens up discussion. I mean, and it's also, in a safe environment. Like science fiction allows you to explore these things in a non-political, non-aggressive, condemning way.
With a slight flavor of escapism. So, my show tends to not get watched a lot during finals week because nobody feels like studying.
You see the dip. You see the dip as a,
and then they'll pop back up when that's done, or that because then you can see which ones do better on certain occasions. Several stuff is very near term, but a lot of it has a certain escapist element. It's real, right? We're very focused on the science, but it's not now. It's upbeat and it's in the future. And so it's a place to escape to at the same time. And that is a very important thing for people to have. And, the escapism is something we all want or something we all go for. It's nice when that escapism actually can have something that's positive. Either, it makes somebody feel better or it actually is teaching them a skill. Like I'll go watch cooking shows with my wife or BBC productions in the 1980s because the
murder mysteries. I love the murder mysteries.
And it absolutely doesn't matter at all. And it's just, the most controversial thing is who does the best Agatha Christie of Poirot.
Right. That's a tough one. I always like Suchet, but
I was trying with a particular version. I can't remember his name.
I can't remember the names. It would be lost on me.
Classic one, but there's some good ones. The same for like Sherlock Holmes. The old classic ones from like the 1960s versus. You always have to add a decade on with BBC because it's black and white, so it must have been 50s. Like, nope, that was still the 60s.
Well, Doctor Who was in black and white when I first.
Oh yeah. That was the same time as Star Trek. If memory serves.
Star Trek was black and white too?
No. Doctor Who was black and white even when Star Trek was coming out. I want to say Doctor Who was 63 and Trek was...
I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay, right.
Someone's going to correct me in the comments on that.
Those government systems that just take a little while to update. I could do this forever, but we should go to some questions. And how is your time, by the way? What's your...
I'm good. I'm good. I've left time out for this. I always do that. I know I'm going to go long.
That Hewlett can talk. All right, so the first thing is actually not a question, but I think is a very valid thing. Thank you, Agne, for pointing this out. It's Sky 4591's birthday, so we should say hi. We should say happy birthday to Sky.
Happy birthday.
Okay, Mark Donald says, I always wonder which is better to write stories that were human alien led with tech involved or tech stories with human alien involved. What do you think?
By default, story first, but there's exceptions to that. You think Asimov, the classic, the example of sci-fi writers. He's got a few memorable characters: the Mule, Elijah Bailey, Soutton, but you don't even see Soutton, in the books. I mean, you do in his Prelude ones, which are quite nice. But those are way later after the series already taken off. So there is room to do ones that are tech based. A lot of those like big dumb object ones, the Sphere. Accession, that one book I just mentioned, those are big time object focused, and so that's more of a tech dive. Andromeda Strain too, but so like Michael Crichton's very good at balancing that one. He'll do
I just read Andromeda Strain. I'd never read it.
Yeah, it's very different than the film though.
It's like a historical document now. Yeah,
that's good though. I was rewatching the film I was in a different house then, so 5 or 6 years ago, just recently. Time flies.
Well, this is what happens, and the older you get, the more it always feels like it was yesterday. Yeah,
it's a little while ago. Was that? I don't know. Sometime this millennium, though. I'm sure it was the third millennium. but I would say focus on the first thing is decide your core plot and setting. If you're doing something sci-fi and fantasy, those have to be consistent. That's usually where I get my stories from. And it just kind of depends on where your strength lies, but the characters are what people usually get sold on. So the interaction's there. And so for whatever you do, get those characters designed with their strengths and weaknesses first, and make sure they're not copies of each other, which is one of the things I don't do a lot of writing of, because my dialogue tends to be either very exposition heavy, as you'd imagine, or everyone comes off as some kind of slightly cynical chess master. So this is perfectly rational.
So what's funny is you write about the science and tech, but the reality is you are the character in your stuff. Like, I mean, you are the persona for this stuff.
Ironically, I just got around to recording last night the new version of a series I made just a few episodes of back in like 2016, and I was never on screen back then. I occasionally put photographs of myself up, but very rarely, because I don't like to bio on those things. But in the one series, I had a science officer on this crew of the Unity, and most people don't realize, because I'm on screen, the clip out I used, the little graphic I stuck with, was me from back in the old me. So,
oh wow!
So
there you go, spoilers.
Yes, well, I think they probably recognize they saw it now, but I don't recommend people watch it because the speech impediment was very, very heavy back then. So,
Oh, really? And you does it? Well, to be fair though, we all hate our own voices when we hear. Like
oh yeah,
like
yeah, I
even my
know.
voice from last week,
I
I
thought
will.
it sounded like Sean Connery until that was
It's
disappointing.
true. Yes, Money Penny. Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not my voice. But I kind of got used to mine is because I usually, people would say politely to my face, I guess maybe less so when I was not there, oh, you're a very beautiful voice, very different. And that's kind of a nice thing to hear. But then you get on there, I never heard of Barry Kripke from the Big Bang Theory
Yeah.
show until I started doing episodes. Like, geez, they give Barry Kripke a show. I was like, who's that? It's like, oh, that's, yeah. Maybe okay. So it was one of those. I guess I need to get speech therapy, or I need to hire a narrator. And I said to my folks on Patreon at the time, I was like, well, there's a do not hire a narrator, or just do it yourself. We're already used to your voice. So I was like, okay, I'll get speech therapy. And then just 2.5 years ago, I had taken some time off of doing it and got a new therapist. And I talked to her for 1 minute. And she's like, you have a tongue tie. So what's a tongue tie? Is it, how did nobody ever notice before? I was like, well, a lot of them, if they know it's not going to say anything because they see it at school in the U.S., they won't say anything about it because then the school has to actually pay for any adaptive surgery.
Of course, yeah. Oh my god.
And it's like, okay, that's great. So yes,
But it's literally called a tongue tie. That's the
yeah. It's just the little membrane under your tongue is a little bit longer. They're fairly common. How much is varies. But I went to see my dentist after that, and I mentioned, he's like, oh yeah, is it? Did no one ever mention that to you before? It says you would know, and it's well. I guess I should have. I just assumed that you would know since you're in your 40s.
Right. Is it a surgical thing? Is it like a
real fast? The only part that was bad about that, and I'd gone to an ENT for, is what I was looking at. Is like, well, apparently at some point in time you broke your nose and had a bunch of like swollen turbinates. So I had to do both those surgeries at once.
Oh god.
And the tongue tie thing was fast and easy. I mean, I was unconscious for the whole thing anyway, so I don't remember. But then they had to stuff stuff up your nose to hold your nose afterwards. Which is really helped my sinuses and breathing. But it's, if you've ever met somebody who got a nose job, they have to stick things up your nose for twice as long as that. After 2 weeks of that, I was going to cry at the idea they might as well leave them in. But and so I've gone from thinking as a very silly surgery for vain people to you earned it. If you got through that process with those things stuffed for your nose,
you've earned it. Really,
you've earned that nose.
All right, I will no longer mock the actors that I see who've obviously got their noses done. Yeah. All right, so we've got Sat Tracer asks, Mr. Arthur, what do you think about a character that has an AI interface with a human brain, enabling the traveler to interact on a private level? Also, perhaps one of the new villains of SG could be an AI that starts a war with Earth Alliance, capable of taking over bodies like body snatchers. Boy, there's a lot in that, Sat Tracer.
Well, I can unpack that for a while. So
AI interface with a human brain. I love the idea of biocomputing, organic computing.
So the question then is it just an augmentation to that mind, like adding a calculator or an advanced butler in there, or is it the equivalent of adding another personality in? And then, so like, is the person talking to their ghost butler, it could be another character that shows up who's only they can see, and you may get fun by they don't cast a shadow on the set of something like that. And that's the person they're talking to, their own virtual butler in their head. Or is it whether they've been augmented?
I think they should have McKay as a virtual butler. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah. Calling up, is it kind of like with Picardo, with the doctor from Star Trek? And I always remember that. Even I liked his role on Atlantis too. But actually, I guess he was on SG1.
But the hologram was freaking great.
The hologram was special, and you could do that same kind of thing, but only the one person is talking to them. And so here's your that's a good excuse for cameos too. Though, because like the private butler pull it up and
any excuse for a cameo. I'm there, Isaac. I'm there.
Pull it up. What's this strange new physics going on? Here's the advanced AI here's Dr. Roddy McKay to explain to you.
Just insult you and tell you why you don't understand it. Yeah.
Well, that was the fun thing was Picardo was so acerbic about it too.
Yeah.
And so that does add a lot to that character. So it's not just somebody's Wikipedian at you, but so you got two ways you could do that. Would be that kind of a force where you got another person basically doing it, whether it's machine or not. And then you got the one where it's just, they could instantly go blink, blink, blink in their eyes, move around, and then they can spit out the answer, which I think would get old kind of fast. But the idea that they have a lot of these things with them, because you go back and watching Star Trek, there's this episode of TNG from season 1. They never used it again, but they could patch into Jodie's visor and see what was going on.
Oh, God, I remember that.
And they're also amazed to be able to see a camera at all. And, and now it's to get a sick. You walk around like your smartphone clicking photographs while
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
analyzing.
Well, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. I mean, the reality is the iPhone was only just beginning to
Yeah.
become. I mean, I remember rejecting the stylus on the
Mhm.
pads that I was given.
Yeah.
I said,
I
"There's
had
no
one. I
freaking
loved it. I
way
never
that
used
I'm
it.
using a stylus."
Yeah. I never used mine. I thought it was a cool feature. My sister said, "Get one of the stylus. You'd like it." I thought it was cool, and I never used it. I
Yeah,
said,
me too. Me too. And now the iPad's out. I mean, not now. I mean, now that the iPad's become ubiquitous,
yeah.
it seems almost. We've now gone back to the stylus. I've now bought myself a nice pen for it so that I can, you know.
You got to use them, and that is the what does that look like? You don't really see people using the tablets and pads as much,
Mm,
and you look at how much we've advanced in that kind of technology in the last 23 years, and you look at fiction, which is not
mm,
present. You have personal computers now; it's a smartphone idea,
mm.
and it's
My
just
life
changed.
signs detector was like bigger than
Oh yeah,
it's like a camera. Yeah.
and then like it would be nice to kind of go to the suite of what's the equipment look like these people are wearing, because one of the big things
Mm,
for Stargate is they were wearing just regular military gear that you would have here. It's like a flak vest and things like
mm,
that.
mm,
But then all those upgrades that you would have over the years explain what their role is,
mm,
and that would be, I mean, especially for military, because you usually get players with the Air Force that never worked with the Stargate, but just having those technical advisors in that can start seeing
mm,
what that would really look like, as well as just adding on those sci-fi layers and
mm.
what could we do? There's a lot to be done. You could do a whole
Well, even
episode.
having an Android with you. I mean, you could
Yeah,
have like. I mean, it's a bit like the Alien franchise, where you
yeah,
could have a humanoid or even not humanoid. You could have like you could go Lost in Space. I mean
yeah.
that kind of that.
And that was a classic one too. Robbie the Robot, whatever
Yeah,
that's planet, but just having those options
I
and
liked elements of the new one. I didn't like the new one, but I liked elements of it.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would say the original Lost in Space is kind of hard to watch. I don't mean the film from the '90s, like the original.
yeah.
It's good, I remember it, but it's definitely it's hard to rewatch. But there's some good ones in there. I think you've Captain America and Lost in Space. They did a lot of
Mm,
roles in those areas, but the just these differences of like that alien companion. It doesn't have to be an alien. It could be
mm,
Teal'c wasn't technically. I guess he was an alien,
yeah,
but I guess actually a lot of folks were aliens that weren't born on Earth
yeah.
and are dubiously human at that point in time. But I think that that android, that Commander Data, that Vulcan, that
Mm.
Beta Z, these are
The
a lot of options to
C-3PO.
explore.
I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, I guess McKay was kind of C-3PO in
In
many
some
ways.
ways, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was the sciencey geeky person, and that's
Mm,
the science officer. Kind of, you need somebody who can explain what is going on, and that becomes that room for the classic science officer, or the room for that alien who's doing something. And the question is, do you really want to go back to the 4-man team? Which,
mm,
again, if you only got 10 episode seasons, then my understanding is that's looking at another 10 to 12 kind of episode season.
mm.
You haven't got time to develop a huge cast, but
Yeah.
it was always cool. That I liked Solenka. It was nice to
Oh
be.
yeah, yeah. He was nice to have around as an assistant. Yeah,
But Atlantis was awesome because you had that big cast of people who are
yeah.
regularly reoccurring
And
that
you
you
could
could
draw
adventure.
stuff from them all. That yeah.
And you don't have to have somebody being a cardboard cutout that just is there for that one thing.
Mm.
Although there's that one scientist guy in possibly season 1 and 2. I think
That
he's.
poor guy. Everyone hated. Was it?
I
What
know.
was his name?
I agreed with his arguments on this. It's like this is
Oh, I know.
actually
He was. Yeah. Was it No,
Kavanaugh, something like that.
Kavanaugh. It was
Yeah,
Kavanaugh, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah. And I felt bad for that. I was like, dude, you straw at him.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I started off as Kavanaugh, basically, as a Kavanaugh character. So it's interesting, though. You raise a good point, though.
Character building on things like that, where you take the guy who seems kind of like the villain. Picard was like that actually too for his
Yeah.
role,
Yeah.
and kind of get them to see them. You turned into a less villainy role.
It's funny though. You've raised a really interesting point, though, because if we just like were to continue Stargate as if it was today,
Mhm.
you'd have a science officer, sure, but they would be getting a lot of their data from
Yeah.
an AI or from a from a
You don't
Google
really,
search. Basically.
you're not really being a physicist alone on that one because you're responsible, a botanist or geologist, and you're not necessarily going to be sending out there. Now, to be fair, there are tons of physicists in the military, so it's hard to source them.
Mm.
But at the same time, you just wouldn't expect to. What are you going to be doing there? Now, if the gate closes, you need somebody who can figure out how the gate breaks. But we've broken that gate in every possible way imaginable. So unless you want to.
We got to figure out new ways to mess it up so we can break it again.
It's like that, the little chatbot. You got the mobile computer that comes along with you and be like, now do X. But then, that's another character you potentially add. You just add a person onto it.
Yeah. Again, you still got to establish all these people. So that is interesting. With a 10 arc, that would be interesting to see. I mean, look, if anyone could do it, it's Garrow. I mean, Garrow's beautiful. Garrow wrote basically my favorite episodes. Like almost universally, him and Brad Wright.
I was so glad to see he was connected to it too.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And then he's actually coming out because the willingness to actually go out to see what I was trying to get brushed up on. He's on so many fan forums for it, just chatting on the videos, and that's there's going to be things that have creatively have to change, but it's so much nicer when the person going in is like genuinely knows their stuff because they've been involved in the forum, they love it, so that helps a lot.
And and what I like about Garrow too is Garrow was always more about character than the science stuff. And I always felt like you can add the science stuff, but you can't just fake the character stuff.
No, and they've got to have, and that shows up a lot. Sometimes characters in the show, they just do not have the depth, and it's not always because the actor. I don't like to always blame the actor or the writer on that. Sometimes it's not well matched.
I always blame the actor because it makes me feel better. I have to say thank you to Domenico Vincenzo. Thank you very much. I didn't even know that the donation thing showed up on here, but I appreciate it very much. Another question for you. And again, let me know. Give me a wave or something when you're like, I'm lagging. Okay, so we've asked that. All right. Ms. DeHonix says, what's the best UG degree to study for the future? UG, undergraduate degree, I guess?
Yeah, probably. Let's assume it's undergrad. Well, as a theoretical physicist, I would go with physics. But it's a good one for it. I would not say computer science as much more because so much of the coding and the hardware is kind of automated. And I remember telling people back in like 2000, this is not necessarily the path for a career at this point.
Yeah.
Medicine's going to be interesting too, but I would say that if you're just looking for that baseline degree, that's going to be just universally handy. Because always just quit the field and go into finance or something instead. It's going to be physics. I mean, math, engineering in general, but I'd say physics.
Interesting. That's funny because I mean, the reality is if you're trying to job security, I don't even know how you have job security now. I mean, the reality is if you're dealing with people in a human, what was that?
Not doing what we do.
Exactly. Well, I can't imagine people trying to get into this now. I don't even know. Thank God this is a hobby for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how I don't know how you do it. I mean,
I got it years ago, and it was already starting to get kind of thick at that time, but it's different. Yeah. I mean, you still can though. And my advice to folks is just keep putting stuff out and improving your quality. If you're looking to be like on YouTube or something like that, and just be ready and do it for something you love, because always invest your time and energy into something you're familiar with and that you really like doing, whether that's whatever.
If you're working to an algorithm, it's a freaking nightmare. I don't know how people do it.
I check the data in very specific ways, only when I have to, because you will kill yourself staying at that data too much.
I'm awful. I don't even look. I literally don't. It's a bit like not reading my reviews.
I didn't, but then at some points I kind of had to kind of use how you.
No, you do. You'd absolutely. I have the luxury of doing that because I don't have to. That's the. I'm sure Agne will come down on me for that. But, she could probably make more heads or tail of it than I could too. Anyway, so. That's interesting. Okay, so that's the undergrad. That's interesting undergraduate. I mean, the funny thing, is that we're going to be the jobs are going to be the human jobs. Like medicine is actually a good one because you're interacting with people. I mean, you may not have all of the, maybe you'll be using AI for some diagnosis and stuff. You still need humans to deal with the physical side of
you
stuff.
You check it. It's just because think of them always as tools. And this is right now. People say things like, "Well, the machine told me," or AI told me. I don't know when people say, "I Googled this up." We stop saying that because, well, we know you web searched up. What do you think you did it that way? Somebody says, "Well, I know I didn't actually build this wooden box. My power tools did."
Right. Well, but that's interesting though. It's interesting.
A couple of years from now, people will stop saying, "Well, the AI helped me write this up," or "The AI helped." It's about you don't have to add it because everybody knows. Right? You don't know how to paint yesterday. And also because it feels like saying, I was doing a good job, but what I really owe it to is my X-Acto knives.
Yeah, it is. That is weird. Actually, that's true.
Yeah. And I think it's because this particular, and
no one thanks Word.
Nobody said this about AI. And again, AI is not new. We've been using it in physics for like a couple of decades now.
Yeah.
And this level of it's more advanced, and now it's kind of more retail. It can progress faster. You get those $1 trillion investments. But the reason why this one's big now is because there's a commercial appeal for certain parts of it, because it is kind of personable So it seems like a person reanthropomorphize everything. I treat my cats like they're people, and they treat me like that thing that feeds them. And they'll keep up what's going to kill me. They don't really love you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, no, I know my dog doesn't.
Yeah.
I know my dog is either hungry or wants to go outside. That's basically,
They do have some connection to us, but at the same time, it's very different. We turn them into humans. I don't know if they turn us into big cats or not, but it's so we do that.
And we do that with AI. I mean, the reality is it'd be better to treat it like an alien intelligence rather than an artificial intelligence.
My philosophy on it is I always treat it with courtesy, not because I'm afraid it's going to go all crazy, but because if I start treating, like when I'm talking to a machine, I treat it politely like I was talking to a person, then that's okay in my mind. Because if I start talking to the AI and I start treating it like it's a servant or a slave or a thing like that, what if I start doing that to actual normal people? And how you behave, that spills over. And, you don't want to start talking to people like they're minions. And, if you start talking to a machine like that, it can get there. Just think of it as a good habit.
I also just find it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? When I get frustrated by a device, there's yelling and screaming and bashing and crashing. But the reality is I get so much more joy out of going like, thank you to something that's not an inanimate, whatever.
Could you please do X? And it's like, okay. But and again, you want to use the same language that you're always using with these things, especially if, like a lot of us do, we let it clean up our emails for us because that at least has a chance of sticking to how you actually normally sound. But for God's sakes, don't let things write stuff for you.
It's funny, because it's funny. I actually sort of I will definitely use it for research all the time and for organizing thoughts because this is a malfunctioning disaster.
A decent outline. It's great for that.
But I find I almost go in not putting in mistakes, but I go in and go like, no, I know it's probably not grammatically correct, but that's how I would say it, so I'm going to say it this way.
Yeah, I will say it the way I say it, and that's my tone. And in some way, because when I'm having ones where I'm going to correct something like on a short and it changes language around on some piece of edit, it's just to say, well, that actually is better than the way I would say it.
Yeah, it happens.
So I'm just going to stick with that. But and after years doing this, I could cold read anything these days.
Well, and it's also like, I mean, the idea, like I love reading on the Kindle, not because I like reading on a screen, but because I can tap words and look them up and immediately without pulling me out of the process of reading, which I do less and less of.
I'm an audiobook fan, so I have tons of books. I still buy them. Even once I had the audiobook before, and I realized it's a kind of a nostalgia baiting thing. The paper, I think it's conjuring a certain feeling.
Yeah.
And this is a very real, scientifically grounded concept. I can't remember what it's called though. Something about nostalgia, and that that is one of those things. Fish nostalgia for good vibes because that really will improve your day. Just go into it, and that means that you enjoy reading an old book that's got like orange colored pages at this point from the years of oxidation. Go for it.
And all the dust mites and all the, I mean, it's books are, I got to say, everyone loves books. To me, it's just dust and that slightly damp smell. I love books. I love the physicality of books, but the convenience of being able to look things up immediately and dig deeper, especially I will read nonfiction. I'll read fiction stuff because I don't like people doing the voices for me. I want
the version. I like one narrator. There are
me too.
Audio dramas where they have a whole cast, and I can say objectively, this is awesome, but it's not for me.
Yeah, it doesn't work for me.
I like one narrator.
Isn't that weird? I'm exactly the same.
I guess I think it's because you want that version. The version gets breaking. You wouldn't think that because like a full audio cast should be more immersive.
Yeah,
and for some people
you would think.
But
all the music, even podcasts and stuff, when they do all the background music and the sound effects, I'm like, nah, just tell me like it is. I don't need all the bells and whistles.
Yeah, I try to keep all the music in mind, very muted to the background mood setting stuff. But then also because I
should probably add music because I think it would help.
Well, going to roll in or something like that but it has its ups and its downs. But I make a narration only version of every one of my episodes that goes out on podcast that has no music in it. Period.
Right.
And it's just me talking, and the only thing there is I have to the music sometimes covers over little clicks or whistles in the background, and so
nice, there you go. Even
most people has to absolutely silence, even my own breathing. I don't like to stay on there. Like, well, that's natural. You should leave it on. It's like no.
But that's funny though because that's definitely part of it. I think the music in the background. Weirdly, I think we are less comfortable with just the sound of silence. I think we do need something in the background for a lot of these things. So.
Something that isn't completely silent. For me, it's like a half second of empty air, but something that's filling the background says we're still going on. It's probably the ums, the uhs, the longest that you train ourselves not to do much of, but your placeholders to say
I am
still
terrible.
speaking or Callahan.
I am an ummer, and I, you know what? And I tried to get it out a lot of the time. I'm aware of it, but unless it's truly drives me crazy.
They serve a purpose in dialogue. We're talking about like actually, again, we're not trying to do dialogue on a show because that's not real human speech. You're not trying to aim for that. Don't aim for real dialogue. Yeah. But the normal people, when we're speaking, the ums and the bahs and the pauses, those are placeholders that let the other person know you're not done speaking. If you try to cut those out completely, like we do when doing public speaking, you get rid of those because no one's going to interrupt you when you're speaking. That's the whole point, is you're talking. But when having those conversational pauses, if you just stop speaking flat, people get a little bit off put because they don't know, am I supposed to say something now, or is he still talking, or is that done? Is he looking?
It's funny, one of the things I remember about Gero was we would have, like, we'd sit around, be sitting around having drinks and chatting and having fun, and inevitably there would be like a silence. Yeah. And he was always the one who would say, like, and now an awkward silence or something like, and I loved that because it always pointed out, because it was always one of those things where I never knew what to do with that. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he embraced it was such an interesting, to me, was just an interesting sort of take on, it made things easier.
An awkward pause. The awkward pauses arise for a reason. And the problem with the awkward pauses, the conversation starts with that worst moment where the rest of the standing around you, everyone else is suddenly gone quiet too. And now you got a whole empty room of just pause, silence, and it is unnerving. It's like, well, what now? Was it in response to what I just said? Did I just say something stupid?
Well, and every so often I find for myself, for my own sanity, I've got these wonderful headphones, the bone conducting headphones. I take the dog out. I've got podcasts, or I rarely, but sometimes I do music, whatever. I'm never in silence.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll leave them at home. I do the dog without that. Walk the dog in just to your own thoughts. I hate it, but at the same time, I think it's good for us once in a while to just sort of be left in our own
silence, or
stewing in our own juices.
Well, yeah, and that's we don't see that as much these days. Is a kind of that sensory deprivation thing, which can be either something people pay a lot of money to have happen to them, so at the retail level at the individual house, or which is like the worst torture you can do to somebody.
Yeah, I don't do it because of altered states. I'm scared I'm going to come back as a kid.
No, what do you think of like X? Like the last thing I want to do is hallucinate. My brain's already out of the box enough.
Yeah. I do not need help being out there more. Yeah.
Just grouping on the reality of my fingertips as is. We'll pass. Thank you. You have fun with that. So.
Yeah. The sensory deprivation thing. It's funny. My because I'm a horrible snorer, I gave my wife earbuds, these nice fancy earbuds, and she has a sleep mask. But she said, but the problem is, then I'm just left alone with my own thoughts, and she doesn't like it.
The nice white noise, but I see the audiobooks I've already listened to a lot, which is one of the reasons I'm always backed up on my reading. Is it's not like I don't listen to audiobooks, but I need something I can't, that I don't need to pay attention to.
Which is difficult. Yeah.
If it was a new good book, like if it's just some crap, then it's not a problem. But I don't want to waste my time on that. So something I've listened to a lot, or something that that I can, just kind of put on in the background that I don't need to fairly pay attention to.
Yeah.
But that means I'm so behind in all my reading. I just finally got around to reading, it was book 10 by Glenn Cook in a book series where book 9 was written in like 1998 or something.
I don't know how you keep up with it. Because I mean, I could just babble. You have to actually make sense. I mean, it's like.
I don't know if that to make sense. You can get away with a lot. Well, I'm surprised how often people would tell me, I love your show. I don't understand any of it, but I love your show. I was like, I'm cool with that. If a lot of people would go right back to, I love to fall asleep listening to you. It's like, I fall asleep listening to audiobooks, so more the merrier.
I get that. I would take that as a compliment. I think that's, that you're comfortable enough.
It's a soothing voice, but I do try to make sure I can be understood on things. But there are episodes I know where it's just, there are sections like I can't leave these out because I'm not the pop sci channel. This material needs to be actually in there. And so it's like, I know everyone's tuning out right now. And I never check to see what the drop-off rate on the videos is right there because it would probably be depressing. But well, I mean, it actually always follows the same curve. I look at these things, so it probably doesn't happen much. But
I'm gonna have to look into this. I haven't. Yeah.
Out. And you can see which parts people don't really watch in the videos. It drops a lot, but usually when the ads, the sponsor rates going on.
Is it? But also yeah. Now, what do you do about that now though? Because now AI, YouTube is skipping that now, right?
Oh no, it's letting you so you could skip that, and of course a lot of people still see it. But it means that those rates go down, the other ad rates go up. It's adaptability. It's a fun, crazy thing. But I like doing custom. Like I wouldn't put ads on the show originally, but I was willing to do some integrations on products I actually liked that seemed appropriate. Like,
oh yeah, that's the only way I would do it. Yeah,
and Audible was my original sponsor for the show, and I mean, brilliant. They were good, but you know, it's a kind of a different environment. Probably said, I just don't want to for the episode. Let them put it in automatically at those places, and then you know, it's different. There's ups and downsides of both of it, but
I am noticing a lot more ads.
Yeah,
a lot more in everything I listen to now. I just paid extra for Prime because I got sick of ads on that.
Well, it's one of the reasons why you can't, like, you know, some of the other platforms like Rumble, for instance, and, you know, it's like, well, I always like to be on a different location. They have a decent number of viewers, but they just don't have the ad basis for it. So you can watch almost any ad free over there because they just don't have anybody who's bought the ad.
Right, right. So, it's like that restaurant that you love because it's empty. But then it goes out of business.
I love going to old malls.
Because,
you know,
yeah, exactly.
It's empty, and that's always my favorite time to be there. These gigantic, empty, huge buildings, which, and that goes to the show. I love gigantic structures, and I like people just fine, but I like to enjoy them. I like downtown districts at nighttime when everybody shut down and got home.
Are you into this sort of the liminal space stuff? Have you explored that at all?
No, really. I know in passing, but
there's some neat horror stuff. It's all mood-based stuff, but the idea of, like, you know, a mall after dark or the corridors behind a mall, just these weird sort of Agnes the pro on this.
Yeah, I love Coach Carnival's. Jeez, I'm terrified of clowns too. But yeah, I think
you're not a horror fan. You don't into the horror.
Oh stuff? Well, I do some, but like Event Horizon or some ones like that were very good.
Oh God, Event Horizon was fantastic and horrific. Yeah,
great film, cult classic. But
yeah. I have to see that again. I just remember that fabulous engine.
It holds up because there was another one. They had a lot of practical effects still. It was the CGI.
Right.
But
young and angry Sam Neill was great.
He wasn't that young in that one, but yes, he's good though. He's good in that one, and it's very good acting in that one. I was thinking it was the prequel to the Warhammer 40,000 series.
I just saw the trailer for the new Warhammer game, and it looks gorgeous, like just gorgeous.
It came out like last year. A lot of Rogue Trader. I wanted to play that one for a while. I finally got around and downloaded it from Steam like 2 weeks ago. I was putting my new thing for. Well, in the New Year's, I'm going to spend more time this year doing some personal enjoyment, and we'll catch up on my audiobooks. Maybe playing a video game, which I played for 1 hour so far. That's all the time I had to do it. So.
Oh, Cal heard the word Warhammer. Yeah, this is I guess. So Warhammer is one of those things I never got into. Like, I have like a starter kit. Baz mentioned it the other day and said, like, hey, we should play that. I'm like, are you kidding? I've had like a freaking starter kit.
I played it for years. I still have my old Imperial Guard on me from 3rd edition. But
oh, wow.
I got into it because BattleTech was a tabletop, and it was an alternative doing D&D at the time. And this was just when Magic the Gathering was a card game coming out in summer.
Magic the Gathering, I love
so many old cards from that original thing, but I don't play it. I switched to BattleTech card game that was much better. And then it's actually where I get the show motto from. But if brute force isn't working, you're not using enough of it from a card in the BattleTech card game. But then it was like, hey, this is a tabletop game too. That's what's originally fun. I was like, I've got to get into this. And then that ended up being just switching to 40K at some point too. But I just love the video games, the books. So it's so expansively crazy and huge, this system.
I got to get into it more. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that, because the reality is I want to get into all these. So the kid and I have been playing. We played Magic a lot. Loved Magic. We played Pokemon as well, which we loved as well.
I'm gonna get out. My son has a bunch of the cards for that, but they don't know how to play. They just like
they're worth a fortune now. They're insane. It's unfortunately it's turned into like almost a crypto bro approach to the stuff. Yeah, I've got a bunch of the Pokemon stuff as well.
I should get my Magic cards out at some point and just sell them so that somebody could actually enjoy them. But at the same time, it's like my comic book collection. My comic book collection is worthless because I got into collecting in the early '90s.
Me too. Yeah.
Hey, I got the number one of this. So did 10 million other people.
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. I have a ton. I love the Magic the Gathering cards. I have like shelves and shelves and shelves, just because I love the art. I love how complex the game is. The Pokemon stuff I just find cute and fun, and we started on this One Piece one that your kids will get into later. You wait. That'll be the next one. One Piece is the same thing. It's kind of a fun game.
I haven't played it yet, but one of my friends, he says he plays with his kid. So,
Oh God, yeah, Baz. I mean, I gotta say, we got a lot out of those cards, out of the Pokemon playing, and also One Piece. I think I could see kids getting into that. Although the One Piece stuff, it's a bit, it's a bit sort of big breasts and women hanging out of things, which
growing up in the '80s, we had like heavy metal as a show. You kind of get used to that. And to myself, when you're watching this nostalgia debate with your kids,
yeah,
that one maybe doesn't fly.
Again, I don't want the sexuality. I just don't want it to be. I just the objectifying seems a little much, maybe.
It's too much for it's too much out there. You learn to ignore it after a while. It's like you can see some beautiful artwork like Boris Vallejo, where it's very over the top. Well, Michael Whelan for that matter too. I love his books. But he does some ones that are very classic 1970s style sword and sorcery ones where it's like, well, he's got on his loincloth and giant sword, and the girl next to him is wearing a chainmail bikini because
exactly.
Why not?
Yeah. Well, that was the heavy metal movie. I remember sneaking into that because it was rated R, and
had a great soundtrack from Queen.
Beautiful soundtrack. Yeah, and some amazing art. And
but there's like I can't watch that with my kids ever. I'm never going to. So
and it gets worse too because I find like it's just like it's not even. Like it's not even that it's that you don't want them to see it. It's just that I just don't want to watch people making out with my kid in the room. Like, even if he's 18, I don't.
But it is different in trying to share a lot of that stuff from that era. It's like, well, okay, I'm not going to freak out if my teenager has seen that movie themselves, but I'm going to do it with me.
Oh God, no. I mean, the funny thing was, like, my son pointing out that every single '80s movie, with every '80s action movie, started with a rape. Because that was the male example of like how can you make someone as bad as possible and make it worth killing them,
Well, to me, the Schwarzenegger films that didn't pop up for this. I went through like Commando and Terminator. That doesn't pop in there, but it's a very visceral, the kind of thing there. And of course, you say that's very artistically powerful. But at the same time, the reason we cut it out these days is very triggering to people. So I was like, well, the folks that's happened to, you just direct the whole thing for them. So could you do it a different way? And then they say, well, if you can, you can. If not, then you can't.
It was also a cheap trick. Like it was also a cheap way, a cheap, easy.
Oh yeah, exploitation flicks from the '70s in particular.
That was it.
And you actually, some of those were actually fairly decent, hidden gems, but mostly they're garbage. So
I mean, look, this stuff. I look back at some of the stuff I was involved in, and I'm like, oh God, like this is. I mean, I felt awkward at the time, and now it's even more awkward. So yeah, it's. I should check if there's any more questions.
Great sci-fi from the '90s that came out of that whole year.
So Scanners or what was that Videodrome? Remember that? That was a weird.
Liquid television. That's
yeah. And then videotapes coming out of his belly and stuff. It was really creepy. I'm just gonna double check and see if there's any questions that we may have missed. I can't believe we're already over 2 hours.
Here we go. Well, I went for a little bit longer. I know my wife popped in a moment ago, so I thought it was a whole way of time. Yeah, I should be going.
I know. I got the sense. I was like, could that be? Is that's usually a hint for me to get the move on?
Probably, but she'll come back with another hint if she really needs it.
Okay, all right, great. When my wife brings me tea, I know that I've got to go.
That happens sometimes too. This is good. I'm glad you're having fun, but now it's time to move on. I have things I would like you to do, and I know we have some shows to put up at the.
Oh my God! Yeah, there's a few
shows. Shows.
Have you got any big plans for the year?
Well, the biggest plan for the year is, for me at least, is trying to take a little bit more time off. So I did the schedule a bit last season. I was doing like 10 episodes a month or 12 in some cases. Like, maybe we want to get back to just 2-week tops with the occasional short. But the funny thing is, I managed to write over 100 episodes in 7 months.
That's crazy.
And it's actually, right now I have 15 unaired, fully produced videos waiting to go, like 10 more recorded, and 30 scripts that are written or in progress waiting to be recorded.
This reminds me of the Alone episodes where people are like stuck in the middle of they're in survival mode, and a lot of them starve to death because they've got lots of food.
Yeah.
And they're storing it. They don't want to use it, so they got it all stored.
I like to have that build-up thing because it's like, well, for me, if I don't, especially in the wintertime, I like to have a bit of a, head start because one, December's a great time to put content out on YouTube.
Yeah.
January is the binge month too. So,
Oh, is it?
that's,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
January is binge month. January, February is binge. And December is a bit bingey, but it's mostly that's when the ad rates are really high. So that's when we try to dump
Oh,
content.
really? Oh, I need this
So
stuff.
it's a good chance for me to like, have my backups and kind of get a movie along and see for people to watch. But then the other end of that is, I just like to have a lot in advance in the wintertime because if my throat goes on me from a cold, and I used to get them all the
Of
time,
course.
yeah, you're done. You can't record for a while, so I like to have them record in advance. So I always had episodes
Oh,
2 months
wow.
recorded because when I get colds, they'd stick with me for at least a month. So
Do you ever get the? I mean, I know a lot of the sports people that Baz watches because he does sports management now. He's interested in basically every sport and all aspects of it. But they've all started. They all started kind of like you, so they had their little sports thing, and they've all sort of like expanded into other people doing content on their like using their sort of franchise. Is there any thoughts to expand with other people?
with other people, well, kind of yes, but no. There's a whole bunch of science shows, science adjacent ones where I do them when they were very tiny, like in the 10K
Yeah,
range. And sadly, a lot
yeah.
of them never really made it through. And I always told people, like, look, if you make a decent show and then do like 6, 10, or 12 of them, so you actually got some content because people need to watch and 4 or 5 for the subscribe,
Hmm.
I will plug your show just on your own principle. It's
Oh,
decent.
really?
And that was how I did it. And I'd say for authors, I'll just, here's this book. This is out there for somebody for the audience. And when people say, well, would you like more on the show? I have volunteers who are on the show, but I like volunteers because I have 2 modes of leadership. Either I delegate everything or I micromanage to death, and one of the two. But
Yeah,
there's no in
yeah, yeah,
between.
yeah. I'm the same. I'm the
And
same.
I
Yeah.
cannot delegate anything that's critical to the show. So
Mm.
basically, you could help on scripts in terms of editing. They help mod forums. They help review to make sure there wasn't like, I'll have extra takes I left in the show, and then so you'll catch that on review. But for a lot of stuff, I kind of do it myself. So when people say, "Well, what do you suggest to start?" They're sending this episode and say, "Would you like to do this episode?" I said, "Well, I wouldn't mind doing something like this. It will look completely different than you wrote if I take it, though. Maybe you should do it. And if
Yeah,
it's good, I'll
yeah.
tell people you made it." And I mean, I thought about hosting other people on mine, but it's like, start your own show, man. Do your own thing.
Mm.
I've read. It's more like writing. It's like an author. You can co-author with people. That's actually fun to do sometimes. I've done some fun collabs, but it's so much fun just to do your own thing and have other people be their own island. And you might have their own team for that too. It's not always a one-person show. But for me, that's kind of this. I do video essays. I pick a topic to write about, and then it gets produced. And then the production takes more time than writing because I love the writing. I do it very fast. I actually write most episodes in 3 hours.
Really? So what's it? So your writing is less of a stress on you than the recording.
That's my favorite part. So I relax while I'm writing, and that's why there's like 40 scripts written right now, 42, whatever it is, that's just ready to go. But the recording, especially the editing of the recording, was always the pain in the butt. Was the VO. I never minded recording itself. My voice was okay, but doing on camera now, especially with that's a lot more.
Are you going back and redoing stuff? Like, are you?
In some cases, yeah. Usually, and this has happened with just the speech impediment getting better. Is does this episode need a refresh or an update? Say, could I just take this old episode and redo it completely? Say no, because I'm going to need to redo it completely. I can't. There's many things to change.
It's not as simple as just
So the old episodes out there, maybe I'll do the update on it, or I'll, we have a lot of ones where we've touched this topic 8-9 years
and then
ago.
you'll revisit it again, and
And there's so much more to talk about. And so there's some basic stuff you always have to kind of carry over. But beyond that, it's so much more fun just to do something new. It'd be tempting to have them remastered by something like, hey, maybe one day when the AI is good enough, it can come back and clean up all the really bad AV from the first days.
Well, again, I think part of the appeal for a lot of us, I think, is seeing people grow, like seeing a channel grow. There's something wonderful about seeing people exploring and trying stuff. I mean, I'm more 3 steps backwards than I am,
and especially these kind of formats, because you are, and it's one of the reasons I think a lot of people like the on-screen appearance of these days is you connect to the person more. And for me, especially the early episodes, I very much did not want it to be a personality. I wanted it to be this the material, and I would find if somebody else was recording it entirely originally. Now it would seem strange to have somebody else doing my narrations, but at the time it was like, well, here's the script. I just want that information out to people, and it evolves, it changes, but I think that that's a very different show at that point in time. And yes, people do like to see that post-production evolution. But I think there's also still a lot to be said for just like this concept. And for me, each one of those was a unique
Very
concept.
simple,
At that time, I
doable.
would not even touch an episode if I can find anything on it on YouTube anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to say that a lot of topics that I touched back then that nobody ever touched before have like 10 or 20 videos out there nowadays.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, but that's, I mean, I guess my thing, but it's also changed. Like, I feel like before you could put out content and people could like it and find it and you would build an audience that way. Now it seems all about retention, and it's all about,
it's a big deal for it. Yeah. And it is a pain. And
you don't want to be on the hamster wheel. Like,
yeah, well, when you get there, you get a churn rate. So after a certain time, you get used to your subscribers going to high rate. You wonder, why is the subscription growth dripping off a little bit? And you think people are just not watching and enjoying as much, because the views are the same as before. And what you realize is that they do a count of net subs. So you'll have subs coming in, subs going out. And you always kind of wait, well, when do I get to 100,000? When do I get to 1 million? You realize, oh, you passed that years ago, but because you did it a little bit slower, you're having people who are slowly unsubscribing at a fairly fast rate. At a certain point, it starts being where the unsub rate is fairly close to sub rate. So you
wow.
that. And yeah,
it's funny. I sort of stopped.
Find it out if you wonder what happened to my show, and they're like, oh, nothing.
Nothing. It's fine. It's fine. I feel like I love. Well, the alarming thing that I saw a lot in the last couple of years was the burnout. I'm seeing people who I really love and respect and have enjoyed their stuff, and I've watched them just go like, I'm out. Like,
no,
you know,
you see burnout and anything, but especially because the rule for a long time on YouTube, and I never did that one the way I want to be on now, was 2 episodes a week minimum. If you want to, one is the absolute minimum, but 2 was better, and that would burn people out fast, especially folks who were even trying to build up. A lot of the older guns, we already had a set of format, and we were really trying to beat the algorithm out to convert whole new.
Right. You had an audience that was familiar with that format, anyways.
But people would burn out with it, and they'd and it is sad to see in a lot of cases, because YouTube in particular tends to attract younger crowd at that time. It's a little bit more now because the youngest moved to Instagram, but my audience demographic is actually highest around age 40 right now. Really? But which is surprising, because you tend to think YouTube is 18s and 20s. But a lot of the creators,
I think YouTube's getting older, because I think there's a lot more. I watch YouTube now like I do television. In fact, I watch it on television in many cases.
Yeah. And folks who Instagram and TikTok and all that, those are not long form content locations. But your audience tends to match your own age a little bit too in some cases. But my audience is a little bit older than average for science education content, which is already a little older than average for normal stuff on YouTube. But the audience is there. You got somebody who's 20 some years old and they're really big on that. Like, I was in my mid-30s, so I had a career and a lot of life, and I did this, so I knew what burnout looked like. I got that down in Iraq. I know how to burn out. Grad school was even worse, to be honest. And so you know how to ration yourself and what steps to take to don't burn out. And when you haven't had that, because you started in your early 20s, it kind of happened to you, and you've been on this kind of roll of stardom, as it were, but you don't have that mental backup of, this is going to be these days when it's just very low. There are going to be months where you're just like, I feel like I'm phoning in. That's another reason I write lots of scripts in advance, is if I find I'm having a phoned in month, I'll just work on admin stuff instead and cut that stockpile. Because if you got to force it all, it's so much easier to force it on a voice recording for an hour than try to float into a script. If I'm having a day where I'm tired of sleepy,
oh my God, sitting down at a laptop and a blank page. Oh my God. Yeah. No, absolutely.
That's another one I like AI for, is it helps you get that blank page thing out of the way too. It's 10 concepts for today, and I do polls on the show too, like what episodes would you guys like to see next from these 4 or 5 topics that I just threw out of the hat, and say, okay, good, that gets started. But trying to get that first step sometimes on that blank screen, that's the hardest bit.
Oh my God, the number of times where even just my little email of awesome, I just I know I've got tons of things I want to talk about, but all of a sudden you just blank when you've got to actually sit down and do it. So
and it is insane for painting with the other skin, that first star. Once you're there, see the one story is that sometimes you're just putting something down across the screen, and at that point it's like, well, that's cool. Well, how can I fix this now?
Right.
There you go.
It's funny. My wife always said that it wasn't that editing was where it's at. It's the whether that's in the writing format or the video format, that's where things get made. It's almost like this is almost like the raw material, and then
that's just something people miss a lot. Like book writing, they're trying to come into it. It's like, well, I've got to have this whole story fully in my head, and I'm going to write. Is like, don't do that. Don't. The reason why so many intros or chapter ones of books have not even got the main character in them. If you go back and write that one afterwards, I just tell people, if you're self-publishing a book, I still advise is record a few chapters for free on YouTube and cover up and put it out that way. But record them backwards because your first chapter one is what's got to sell people, and that's the absolute worst if you don't know this before.
Interesting.
And, people are so bad about when to do extra takes too. They say, "Well, that was good enough." It's not.
Oh my God! It's that. Well, it's funny. I think there's like two schools. There's the good enough, or there's the it's never good enough.
Oh yeah, and super perfectionism, and that's a threat too. That's
which is just another form of procrastination unto itself. I think
I can only polish things so much in a weekly show. So
it's funny. I definitely I found that I would spin, on all of the stuff in like an email or whatever. And eventually I got to the point where I was like, no, just get your stuff out there, read it over. You've done the work. If you miss something, you miss something, but so it's more about keeping the communication open than it is anything else.
And polishing for what are you aiming for? But I have had a few people, where they actually got worse on successive takes.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, actually, I've seen that with actors. I've seen with actors who go like, "Can I get another?" And you're like, "You don't want one." It's just getting worse.
It's getting more mechanical.
It is true. Some people, and if you you see them going like panicking. I had a director friend who said if it's not working on the first few takes, just move the camera. Doesn't matter how marked, even if it's just a little bit, just do something to break it up.
It takes. If I gobble it 3 or 4 times, I will stop and rethink how to reword that sentence because it's not, or at least pause for a few. If I've got to keep that word because it's someone's name, I'll say, do I actually need to have that person's name said? And if it was like the Tchaikovsky rocket equation, I will botch that almost anything by reading off a sentence.
Yeah, try my techno babble, baby.
It's like when you're used to hearing them because you use them in your professional time. Yeah. A lot of those arcane physics terms aren't that arcane. When you hear them a lot, they're usually meant to be really simple and mundane. It's not the weird French or Latin stuff, but trying to say them if you don't know them, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
And if you come across one of those ones where you're just garbling it, especially at a speech and put them on there too, it's like, okay. I need to find a new word, or I need to restructure the sentence so I can open with it because you can't.
Or you make something out of it. I mean, that's the other thing. The other thing is okay, this is a word I know I'm going to screw up, so I'm going to,
And you do that live too. People appreciate it when they're live, but scripted stuff you need to nail a little bit more. But it makes some good jokes.
And I think it's funny though, the perfection. I always call them the happy accidents. I feel like it's the little things that you're not expecting that will appeal to people in a way that you just don't. You could never plan. It certainly happens. It's funny this year. So for me, this year is I have a script I have to write. My wife has actually said we need this by whenever, and so I've actually got to sit down and start writing scripts again, which I haven't done forever. So that's gonna be interesting. But I love the idea though that 2026 for you is stepping back and enjoying life. It's fantastic. It's amazing. Look, I should let you go because it's been 2.25 hours of pure joy. I feel we've only just scratched the surface on this. We'll have to revisit it at some point whenever you're
always glad to be on. It's generally fun.
Oh my God, it's the best. And obviously, if there's anyone here who isn't watching Isaac, for God's sake, get over there, subscribe and like and do all that stuff because it is such wonderful, engaging, imaginative stuff that will just get your brain going. Enjoy it. Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to double check, make sure that Aggie doesn't have any more questions for me.
So in the chat, by the way, your mic was off the whole time.
Yeah, that's when I find. Thank God my chat knows how bad I am at audio, so they will hit me on that pretty quick. Thank you all, everyone, so much. I will invite you to go to techbandits.org. Check out what's going on over there. I've got the email of awesomeness, which is just a free little newsletter of little ideas and sci-fi stuff, science and technology stuff that sort of caught my attention. Obviously, everyone go check out Isaac Arthur on YouTube if you're not already. Anything else you want to, Isaac? Anything else you want to let people know about?
Oh, geez. Well, as usual, if there's an episode that you want to see made, put something in the comments either here or elsewhere, because I will come back and look at them later. And we're always looking for ideas. And tomorrow's fun idea we're exploring is cryogenic arc ships. So,
ooh, nice.
Yeah, it's a fun topic.
Arc in space. It was good. Doctor Who. It was good. Yeah. And you've got a Q&A coming up too. You've got a live Q&A.
Yeah, January 21st. It's the first one I've done in 2 years. A little bit of fingers crossed on that one.
Do you get nervous for that kind of stuff, for the live stuff?
Every time I've done a live stream, every single time, even when I was doing them monthly, there was always some kind of new tech glitch that happened right at the beginning of the show.
Oh yeah, that's me. I've given. I get nervous if I don't have a major issue. Like honestly, I mean,
No matter how fast you get, once you start that choke roll, it gets hard to recover from the choke.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's true. Yeah. I mean, it's funny though. I do find because it's out there and it gets out there. I find the live stuff much use for this brain. For me, it's much better that trying to sit when I've got stuff and I sit on it and I start working on it. Ugh, it never comes out. It's terrible. Well, look, thank you everybody in the chat on all the various different platforms. So much appreciated. Thank you for the questions, Cal. Thank you for coming, and of course. Agne for making all of this happen. She's fabulous. Yeah, we will talk soon. So until we geek again, I will say be brave, be kind, be brilliant. Cheerio.